Chapter 893 Trade. As soon as these words were spoken, the interest of many of the higher-ups of the human race faded. They naturally lacked skill books and equipment, and the amount they lacked was huge. However, even though this sixth speaker had many skill books and equipment to sell, how could he satisfy the needs of the human forces behind all the higher-ups of the human race? If this sixth speaker sold all his equipment and skill books to the upper echelons of the human race present, each upper echelons of the human race would probably not get much. A small number of skill books and equipment were not very useful to the human forces behind them. I wonder how many skill books and equipment items the sixth speaker wants to sell. A high-level human counselor decided to ask. However, even so, they had a rough guess in their hearts. This sixth speaker had quickly risen and killed countless forces of fog monsters. He should have 10 to 20 billion equipment and skill books, right? This was the result of as much speculation as they could. At the moment, in preparing to sell the first batch of equipment and skill books. Among them, there are 500 billion skill books and 500 billion equipment. Zhou didn't waste any time and said directly. As soon as he said this, the entire conference room fell silent. All the higher-ups of the human race looked at Zhou in a daze. Even the Yellow Emperor, Patriarch Lu, and White River were the same. 500 billion pieces of equipment and 500 billion skill books. Patriarch Lu could not help but want to confirm. Zhou nodded. The upper echelons of the human race were in an uproar. With so many equipment and skill books, if they used them all, they could arm 100 billion human soldiers. They didn't even have so many soldiers in the entire human race. Was the Lord of the Blazing Sun joking? Many upper echelons of the human race looked at Zhou in disbelief. Only the Yellow Emperor, Patriarch Lu, Bai He, and a few other deities who knew Zhou looked at him in surprise. They all knew Zhou well, and knew that Zhou would never joke about this, especially at a meeting of the Supreme Council of the human race. So what Zhou said was true. Did he really have 1 trillion pieces of equipment and skill books? Thinking of this, their breathing immediately became heavy. Especially the Yellow Emperor, Patriarch Lu, and the Bai He gods. If they could really obtain this batch of equipment and skill books, it would mean too much to them. In fact, the clan policies that they had decided on before they came might change because of this batch of equipment and skill books. The three gods looked at each other and seemed to see something in each other's eyes. Their eyes became firm. At this moment, I want 50 million sets of equipment and skill books. Don't worry about the price, speaker. As long as it's reasonable, I'll gather it for you even if I have to sell everything. A middle-aged king with an exquisite jade crown on his head was the first to speak. He gritted his teeth and looked like he was bleeding profusely. Zhou looked over and the other party's information appeared in his mind. A high-level kingdom-level lord faction, the Seven Treasures King, one of the high-tier deity god spirits of the human race. It was said that it had nearly 200 million soldiers under its command, and all of them were kingdom-level soldier types. Even though they could not compare to the kingdom-level lord factions of the human race, they were considered one of the strongest among the kingdom-level lord factions of the human race. Alright, this king guarantees a reasonable price. After the meeting, you can send me your country's address first. Then, I'll immediately send someone to bring enough equipment and skill books to your country to trade. Okay. The Seven Treasures King nodded with a determined expression. His kingdom was being besieged by a large number of Scarlet Army coalition forces. Furthermore, with the support of the Divine Sword Empire and the others, he would not be able to support his Seven Treasures Kingdom in a short period of time. In order to increase the combat power of his own army and support the reinforcements of the Divine Sword Empire and other human empires, he had to buy this equipment and skill book to increase his strength. He had no other choice. With the first person to step forward to eat the peach, the other higher-ups of the human race no longer hesitated. They all sent deals to Zhou. Even Ji Yun, Lu Zhen, and the other higher-ups of the 5 human empires could not help but buy hundreds of millions of equipment and skill books. A moment later, Zhou Zhou realized that he had already been booked for more than 13 billion pieces of equipment and more than 9 billion skill books. Zhou Zhou felt very happy when he saw this. Even though he still had a lot of equipment and skill books that he had yet to sell, he knew that with the size of the human race, buying so many equipment and skill books was already the limit. Buying more was equivalent to purely helping Zhou Zhou increase his sales. Even though he could do that, with the current situation of the human race, it was not suitable. However, Zhou Zhou did not care about this at all. This was because if he sold all the equipment and skill books worth more than 22 billion, he would be able to obtain a total profit of more than 200 million legendary tier mist cores. This was already 1/5 of the profit of selling 100 billion skill books and 100 billion equipment to the Lord of the Cerulean planet. It looked a little strange, right? This was because the total profit from selling the same amount of goods to the human race was actually nearly twice as much as the total profit from selling to the Lord of Cerulean planet. The main reason was that among the goods sold to the Lord of the Cerulean planet, Zhou Zhou only sold goods below extraordinary tier. There were very few Lord factions on Cerulean planet that had epic tier and above experts among the human lords on Cerulean planet, other than the Dragon Lady Lord and other human kingdom level Lord factions after all. However, it was different for humans. Zhou Zhou sold everything from legendary tier equipment and skill books to black iron tier equipment and skill books. It was precisely because a portion of the products were at the epic tier and legendary tier levels that even if not many products were sold, the total profits from the same number of products far exceeded the profits from the Cerulean planet's Lord market. At this moment, the Yellow Emperor suddenly spoke and looked at Zhou Zhou with a burning gaze. Sixth speaker, I want to represent the entire human race to buy the remaining 970 billion equipment and skill books. With that said, Zhou Zhou did not show anything. Instead, the other higher-ups of the human race were stunned. Buy them all. It is not impossible to buy it if the entire human race sold everything they had. But is it necessary? It's not like the human race has no place to spend the mist cores. It can even be said that there are many places where it is necessary to spend the mist cores to enhance its strength. Isn't it a little thoughtless to use it all to buy Zhou Zhou's equipment and skill books now? The Yellow Emperor also noticed the gazes of other humans and added seriously, however, at the moment, our human race doesn't have that many extra mist cores to purchase your equipment and skill books, so I want to sign a contract with you on behalf of the human race. You sell the equipment and skill books to us humans, and we humans promise to hand over the remaining debt to you in batches within a month until the transaction is completed. How is it? Sure. Zhou Zhou chose to agree without hesitation. He was not in a hurry to complete this transaction, nor was he in a hurry to get the mist cores. Instead, he was more worried about how to sell all the extra equipment and skill books. He was naturally willing now that the Yellow Emperor was willing to buy nearly 1 trillion pieces of equipment and skill books. Chapter 890 For the Yellow Emperor's decision. Zhou Zhou and the Yellow Emperor then discussed the specific details of the transaction, and finally decided to sell nearly 1 trillion pieces of equipment and skill books to the human race for 50 billion legendary tier mist cores. Zhou Zhou promised to hand over the mist cores and the skill book to the human race after the Supreme Council meeting. The human race promised to hand over 50 billion mist cores to Zhou Zhou in batches within a month until the transaction was completely completed. Both sides were happy, especially Zhou Zhou. Zhou Zhou had already prepared this trillion amount of equipment and skill books, and it would take a long time to sell them, and the expected profit from the sale was only about 40 billion legendary tier mist cores. Now he has not only found a buyer for the 100 billion worth of equipment and skill books, but the other party is also willing to spend 50 billion legendary tier mist cores to complete the transaction between them. This has far exceeded his expectations. How could he be dissatisfied? After the thorough discussion, Yellow Emperor smiled and said, Sixth speaker, do you know what confidence I have to buy your equipment and skill books with 50 billion legendary tier mist cores without compromising the current interests of the human race? After he finished speaking, not to mention Zhou Zhou, even the eyes of other senior human race officials were full of curiosity. Honestly, when the Yellow Emperor proposed the idea of acquisition, they themselves were shocked. As one of the ruling parties of the human race, they naturally know the situation of the human race thoroughly. Logically speaking, the human race shouldn't have that many mist cores to purchase such a large amount of equipment and skill books right now. After Zhou Zhou finished listening, he pondered for a few seconds and said, "Is your excellency going to sell it to other forces?" "Huh, you guessed it." The Yellow Emperor smiled and nodded amidst the expressions of people who suddenly realized, "Yes, I am planning to sell this batch of your equipment and the mist cores to the people of foreign races who are close to our human race. And this is what I plan to tell everyone at the end of the meeting. However, that can wait. You probably have something more to discuss, judging by your expression." "That's right, I have two other types of commodities to sell other than the equipment and the skill books," Zhou Zhou said. First category, he waved his right hand and 3 items appeared in midair. One was powder, one was ointment, and one was medicine. This is a special profession creation called Dark Walker from our territory. They are called the second-generation Demon Vanquishing Powder, the second-generation Demon Concealment Ointment, and the third-generation Sacred Redemption Medicine. Among them, the Demon Vanquishing Powder can eliminate the additional strength increase obtained by the fog monsters after entering the night. It also has a 10% weakening effect on their strength. The second-generation Demon Concealment Ointment can be applied to life forms. It can also make life forms that are covered in the Demon Concealment Ointment have a high chance of treating living beings that use the Demon Concealment Ointment as members of the Fog Monster Camp when they encounter fog monsters, thereby preventing the user from being attacked by fog monsters. The third-generation Sacred Redemption Medicine can be consumed by living beings that have already transformed into fog monsters and turn them back into normal life forms. However, there's a limit to using it. The time it takes for the other party to transform into a fog monster must be within 20 years. If it exceeds 20 years, it can't be reversed. Our Blazing Sun Kingdom has already mass-produced these 3 potions. If everyone is interested, you can cooperate with our Blazing Sun Kingdom for a long time. As long as you don't do anything inappropriate, we welcome anyone to trade with us. After he finished speaking, all the higher-ups of the human race looked at the 3 potions in a daze, especially the last Sacred Redemption Medicine. It could actually turn a creature that had transformed into a fog monster back into a normal life form. Tens of thousands of races had tried this kind of exploration before. Even though a very small number of races had success in their research, the cost of building it was extremely high and could not be popularized on a large scale. Now, the King of the Blazing Sun had actually told them that their Blazing Sun Kingdom could already mass-produce this reverse medicine. How could they not be shocked? Just as they were about to say something, Zhou Zhou took out the last item. It was a yellow talisman Dao Soldier Class Change Certificate. Imperial Soldier Type Class Change Certificate. When Yellow Emperor and the others saw this class change certificate, their eyes lit up. "Are you selling class change certificates like ours? How many copies are there? What price are you planning to pay?" "Well, take them all." This was a good thing. Moreover, it could immediately increase one's combat strength. No one would think that it was too little. Zhou Zhou thought to himself, not only do I have this yellow talisman Dao Soldier Class Change Certificate. He also had the Class Change Certificate of the Soul-Absorbing Demon Spirit and the Taboo Mage, these 2 Empire-level soldier types. However, these 2 Empire-level soldier types were too evil. If they were nurtured, not only would they be a threat to him, but in the end, they might even be useless and nurture subordinates for the enemy faction. Therefore, Zhou Zhou did not even put them in the monster ranches to nurture, let alone trade them to the humans. "I do plan to sell this class change certificate. As for the price, 1 Epic Tier Mist Core and 1 Yellow Talisman Dao Soldier Class Change Certificate. In terms of quantity, I can take out 1 billion copies of the Yellow Talisman Dao Soldier Class Change Certificate every day. Your Holiness, if you can eat them all, I can sell them all to you. Zhou Zhou said. That was not all that he had. His monster ranches could provide him with 1.8 billion copies of the Yellow Talisman Dao Soldier Class Change Certificate every day. He kept 800 million copies behind just to prevent any accidents. After he finished speaking, everyone was shocked and then overjoyed. 1 billion Empire-level Soldier Type Class Change Certificate. If what this sixth speaker said was true, then this 1 billion Imperial-level Soldier Type Class Change Certificate could completely allow all the close combat soldiers in the human empire to be promoted to Imperial-level close combat soldiers. If the sixth speaker could provide 1 billion Empire-level soldiers every day, it would not be difficult to change all the melee soldiers in the human race to Empire-level soldiers. When all the melee soldier types reached the Empire level, the strength of the entire human race would probably increase by more than 5 to 6 times. Then we humans can take them all. The Yellow Emperor said without hesitation. As long as what Zhou Zhou said was true, he would buy it on behalf of humanity no matter the price. Sure. Then from tomorrow onwards, they'll start sending the Empire-level Soldier Type Class Change Certificate to the human race. Zhou Zhou said with a smile. With 1 billion copies of the Yellow Talisman Dao Soldier Class Change Certificate, even if he only bought 1 Epic Tier Mist Core per copy, he could easily earn 100 million Legendary Tier Mist Cores. Not to mention that his monster ranch would expand in the future. At that time, he would be able to sell even more class change certificates. Oh yes, if you don't have enough mist cores, he'll temporarily accept the use of life elemental gems and death elemental gems to exchange for mist cores. Zhou Zhou added. The upper echelons of the human race pondered. Even though they also wanted to use the 2 gems to trade, they would naturally use such treasures that could increase the level of their territory. There was not much left. Zhou Zhou didn't say anything else when he saw this. Instead, he looked at the Yellow Emperor and said, Your Holiness, I'm done. Then he'll start. I've decided. From today onwards, we humans will shrink our forces in all directions. We can even give up most of the human territories for this. We need to move all the human subjects to the primordial world to recuperate. The Yellow Emperor's words were earth-shattering and the expressions of the upper echelons of the human race immediately changed. Follow current novels on Top Novel Full. CM. Chapter 895 Chaos Level Secret Document. After the Yellow Emperor finished speaking, not to mention the upper echelons of the human race, even Zhou Zhou was shocked. Why did he suddenly make this decision? Now that the human race had a little help from him, shouldn't he work hard to increase his strength and expand the human race's territory? Why did they have to shrink their strength and even retreat into the primordial world? Wasn't that cutting off his own future? Why? Lu Zhen could not help but say. As the ruler of the strongest empire among the 5 human empires, he was also very confused. He looked at Patriarch Lu and saw him silently shake his head. Lu Zhen was stunned. They had already discussed it. This was not a discussion, but a notice without any suspense. The others also asked. Zhou Zhou had wanted to ask too. He was now the 6th speaker of the human race after all. However, he hesitated for a moment before silently sitting in his seat. He believed that the Yellow Emperor and company would take the initiative to tell him the reason. As expected, they soon saw His Excellency Yellow Emperor stand up from the seat next to Regal Pangus. Then, he looked at the human upper echelons with a deep and calm gaze. When the upper echelons of the human race saw his actions, they stopped talking and waited for the Yellow Emperor to explain. When the Yellow Emperor saw this, he suddenly sighed. Then, with a wave of his right hand, dozens of streams of light flew out of his sleeve and landed in front of the higher-ups of the human race, forming a black illusory paper document. The black illusory paper document was filled with a chaotic aura, and the words Chaos Level were written on it. This is a Chaos Level secret document that represents the top secret of our human race. After you're done reading, you're strictly prohibited from leaking it. Otherwise, you'll be sentenced to death. When the Yellow Emperor finished speaking, his tone was filled with killing intent. The upper echelons of the human race were secretly shocked. Especially Zhou Zhou. This was the first time he had seen the temperament of the Yellow Emperor. He suddenly became so fierce and full of killing intent. We won't divulge it. The upper echelons of the human race said. The Yellow Emperor's orders were supreme in the era where regal Pangu did not appear. No one present, including Zhou Zhou, had the right to refute him. Then, the upper echelons of the human race opened the Chaos Level secret document in front of them. Horror appeared on the faces of the upper echelons of the human race as they read on. At the same time, many people secretly looked at Zhou Zhou, wanting to see how the sixth speaker would react. Then, they saw Zhou Zhou shake his head calmly after closing the Chaos Level secret document. I didn't expect the calamity of the human race to be because of me. At the end of his speech, even though he did not show anything on the surface, he sighed in his heart. According to the records of this Chaos Level secret document, the Sentinels suddenly sent an emergency intelligence report not long ago. The intelligence report said that not long ago, at least 200 races and factions were about to bring a monstrous army and gather on the high continent to destroy the human factions that existed on it. Among these 200-odd races, most of them were of lower middle-class bloodlines. However, there was no lack of high-level bloodline races such as the Titans, the Purple Moons, the high-level demons, and the elemental races. They had brought with them at least 5,000 to 6,000 god spirits. In terms of military strength, it was estimated to be close to 500 billion. Not to mention the other war machines and other trump cards they carried. Such a terrifying faction was something that even Zhou Zhou and all the human factions in the high continent could not resist if they joined forces. They would probably not be able to defeat this group of people of foreign races in one round even if they tied up all the lords in the myriad worlds. As for the reason why these people of foreign races suddenly wanted to join forces and destroy the human forces in the high continent, it was very simple. Everything stemmed from the battle the night before yesterday. At that time, after he led the god spirits and the soldiers of the Blazing Sun Kingdom to defeat the allied forces of the Scarlet Army, this matter was only known by the lords of all races and the civilizations behind them after a night. They immediately determined that at least at the current stage, no lord faction of the myriad races should be able to restrain a behemoth like Zhou Zhou who had suddenly risen. As for the civilizations behind the lords of all races, they were limited by the supreme agreement and could not attack Zhou Zhou. Coupled with the fact that they were true god tiers, they couldn't descend to the high continent and personally destroy the Lord of the Blazing Sun. Therefore, their gazes landed on the human faction behind the Lord of the Blazing Sun. We can't do anything to you, King of the Blazing Sun. But was there no way to attack the humans? You, King of the Blazing Sun, are protected by the Supreme Agreement, but not the rest of the humans. As long as it was a normal attack between local lords. Even if a Divine Kingdom Lord faction led 1 trillion troops to destroy a small village with only 100 ordinary life forms, they would not violate the Supreme Agreement. The Supreme Will would not say anything. Because that was within the rules of competing for the Lord of all races. In reality, he would not tell you ridiculous things like do not bully the weak. The law of the jungle was the eternal supreme rule of the local lord faction. The Supreme Agreement only protected the lords of the myriad races from being invaded by local forces. However, it did not matter how the lords of all races and the local lord factions killed each other. Hence, the calamity of the human race arrived. This battle involved more than 200 opposing factions and 5,000 to 6,000 god spirits. With the current strength of the human race, they naturally could not defeat them at all. Even if the strength of the human race was increased by 10 times, they would not be able to defeat the enemy this time. Thinking of this, Zhou Zhou and the other higher-ups of the human race understood why the Yellow Emperor had made such a decision. Where there's life, there's hope. This was indeed the most likely decision to preserve the human race's strength to the greatest extent under the current circumstances. Even if this decision involved sacrificing most of the human race's territory, benefits, and even the future. But at least he could survive at this stage. I'll inform my Divine Sword Empire in a while to give up the territory of the Divine Sword Empire and move everyone to the primordial world through the teleportation array. Lu Zhen said bitterly after a long silence. It was unknown how much effort the human race had spent to build the huge Divine Sword Empire to its current scale. Now, just because they heard that the enemy had arrived, they had to abandon the empire that their ancestors had sacrificed their lives to build. It would be a lie to say that Lu Zhen was not heartbroken. However, no matter how much his heart ached, he had no other choice. He had to do this. Otherwise, his empire and citizens would be wiped out by the enemy in the near future. I will also give the order after the meeting to lead all the subjects of the Night Empire to the primordial world. Ji Yin said in a daze. He, who had suddenly lost his Night Empire, was also at a loss. After that, the heavenly Bodhisattva of light, Roigar, who was in charge of the Sahai Empire, calmly said that he would lead all the Buddhist people to the primordial world. Follow current novels on Top Novel Full. Cm. Chapter 896 Trading the Territory of the Human Empire. As long as the three of you understand. As for the subjects of my great Xia Empire and the Heavenly Barbarian Empire, you don't have to worry. I will be responsible for transferring all the subjects of these two human empires to the primordial world. After we reach the primordial world, you don't have to worry about not having a place to stay. As a middle world created by Regal Pangu, the primordial world is infinitely close to the boundless universe. It's extremely vast and can accommodate 10 trillion human subjects. Don't worry and move all the human subjects over. The Yellow Emperor said. Among the 5 empires of the human race, which one of them was not built by the human race after spending a long time resisting countless foreign enemies and burying the blood of countless humans? If one had to say that he couldn't bear to, he was more reluctant than any of the higher-ups of the human race present. However, there was nothing he could do now. The outcome of moving the empire to the primordial world was better than the human empire being destroyed by the enemies of the people of foreign races after all. Yes, Your Excellency. The upper echelons of the human race spoke one after another, but they were still not in a good mood. Oh yes. At this moment, the Yellow Emperor suddenly thought of something and looked at Zhou Zhou. Sixth speaker, are you interested in making a deal? What deal? Zhou Zhou, who was originally in a heavy mood, could not help but be stunned when he heard this. After the 5 human empires and other human factions move to the primordial world, the territory we were originally in will definitely be occupied by the surrounding people of foreign races. Since it will be occupied by others no matter what, why don't we just let you take over? The Yellow Emperor smiled. Let me take over. Zhou Zhou was shocked. The Yellow Emperor nodded. Zhou Zhou shook his head and said, the Supreme Agreement won't allow it, right? Besides, I can't take over the entire human territory. If the lords of all races could take over the huge human territory as they pleased, then there was no need to continue the Lord of all races contest. They would directly let the lords of all races of the top races take over the territory of their own race from the great civilizations behind them. Then, they would directly fight a decisive battle with the lords of all races of the other great civilizations to decide the final candidate for the Lord of all races. The Yellow Emperor shook his head and smiled as he explained, if I give it to you for free, the Supreme Agreement will definitely not allow it. But if you buy it from us humans, it won't be considered a violation of the Supreme Agreement. This is just like how you used a divine artifact to recruit human god spirits to fight for your blazing sun kingdom. This is a fair trade, not behind-the-scenes racial aid like cheating. As for taking over the entire human territory, you naturally can't do it at the moment. But if you only accept 1 or 2 human empires, I believe you can still do it, right? The Yellow Emperor smiled. In terms of military strength alone, Zhou Zhou's blazing sun kingdom was no longer inferior to an ordinary empire-level lord faction. Therefore, he hoped to hand over a portion of the human empire's territory to Zhou Zhou. Zhou Zhou came to a realization. So that was what the Yellow Emperor was thinking. If your excellency leaves with the subjects and the empire, what else will be left for me in this human territory? He pondered for a long time and asked. The vast land, the rich variety, the extremely high production, the various mineral resources that have yet to be mined or mined, as well as all kinds of natural resources, monster resources, materials resources, and other ordinary and rare resources. In addition, there are a large number of self-built buildings left behind after our human city moved. As long as you put the corresponding building blueprints into them, these self-built buildings can restore the functions of the original blueprint buildings. It's mainly these few types. There are many other small benefits. As there are too many of them, I won't mention them. You can slowly understand them in the future. The Yellow Emperor said truthfully. Zhou Zhou's heart skipped a beat when he heard that. The territories that the humans possessed in the High Continent were not worth mentioning in the eyes of other high-level bloodline races. However, in the eyes of a lord of a myriad race that was not even an advanced kingdom, it was already quite a vast area. In addition, this human territory was filled with the various benefits mentioned by the Yellow Emperor. If he could really inherit these inheritances left behind by the human race and make full use of them, he would definitely be able to make a profit. Your Excellency, when do you plan to move everyone to the primordial world? Zhou Zhou asked. The enemy is aggressive and determined to destroy our human race. We naturally can't delay. The Yellow Emperor sighed. Then, his expression became firm. In 3 days, this is the deadline left for our human race. Within this deadline, we will accept as many human race factions as we can into the primordial world. 3 days later, the primordial world has to close and enter the deepest part of space to hide. At that time, those humans who have yet to enter the primordial world will stay in the High Continent and split up. They will survive until the day we humans see the light of day again. Zhou Zhou pondered for a moment and said, with my current ability, I can only go and occupy the territories of the Divine Sword Empire, the Night Empire, and the Sahai Empire after they leave. As for the other 2 empires and the other scattered human territories, I'm helpless. There were too many scattered human territories, and they were too scattered. Even if Zhou Zhou had an army of 10 billion, it was impossible for him to send them to the entire supreme continent to search for these scattered territories. As for the Great Xia Empire and the Heavenly Barbarian Empire, Zhou Zhou did not want to occupy these 2 human empires purely because they were too far away from the Blazing Sun Kingdom and were not conducive to occupation and rule. After all, a few days would have passed by the time he arrived. By then, the 2 territories would have already been occupied by the surrounding people of foreign races or Scarlet Lord forces. The Yellow Emperor, Patriarch Lu, Bai He, and the Heavenly Bodhisattva of Light, Roigar, thought for a moment and nodded. It was already very rare for the Lord of the Blazing Sun to be able to do this. They could not let Zhou Zhou do too much. It was better than being occupied by other factions after all. If you want to take down the territory of the 3 empires. How about this? How about 50 billion legendary tier mist cores and 20 billion yellow talisman Dao soldier class change certificates? Among them, 50 billion legendary tier mist cores will be the price of the previous 500 billion skill books and 500 billion equipment. As for the 20 billion yellow talisman Dao soldier class change certificate, how about you slowly pay it to the humans in the future? The Yellow Emperor said. Sure. Zhou Zhou agreed without hesitation. There were probably more than 100,000 regional territories among the three empire-level lord factions. In addition, there were countless mineral resources, materials, natural resources, and other types of ordinary and rare resources. Zhou Zhou felt that he had made a killing. Follow current novels on Top Novel Full. cm. Chapter 897 Galaxies Transaction. When the Yellow Emperor heard Zhou Zhou agree, a faint smile appeared on his face. As such, Zhou Zhou had obtained the huge territory of the human race, and the human race had also obtained 1 trillion pieces of equipment, skill books, and a large number of empire-level soldier-type class change certificates for free. This was undoubtedly a good outcome for both sides. The matter that he was most concerned about had been properly resolved. At this moment, even though the Yellow Emperor knew that from tomorrow onwards, most of the humans would live in the primordial world and their future potential would be damaged, he still felt much more relaxed. He was even in the mood to tease Zhou Zhou. In a while, you can send someone over to interact with the officials in charge of this aspect of the human race and take over the human territory we gave up. When you completely digest these human territories one day, you and your territory will definitely be able to increase greatly. At that time, I'm afraid no lord of all races can surpass you in terms of development speed. At that time, even if the civilizations behind the lords of the myriad races take the opportunity to attack you, as long as the other party doesn't dare to violate the supreme agreement and deal with you crazily, you should have a certain amount of ability to deal with them. I really want to see what their expressions will be like when the time comes. The Yellow Emperor smiled. The other upper echelons of the human race could not help but laugh when they heard this. The resentment in their hearts from being forced to move had even dissipated a lot. I hope so. Zhou Zhou was not overly proud. His expression remained calm. When the other higher-ups of the human race saw Zhou Zhou's attitude, even though they did not say anything, they clicked their tongues in wonder. This sixth speaker was indeed extraordinarily steady and calm. If they had such potential and had a strong army, they would probably dare to touch the top civilization behind the lords of all races, let alone the lords of all races. And this king of the blazing sun was actually so neither arrogant nor rash. Such a heart that could withstand loneliness was truly rare in the world. By the way, Your Excellency, is the primordial world really that magical that all the experts of the people of foreign races can't detect the location of the primordial world? Zhou Zhou thought of this and asked curiously. From the tone of the Yellow Emperor, it was as if once they entered the primordial world, they could ensure that the human race was fine. Could it be that the primordial world could even block the detection of true God tier and even Master God tier? It's that magical. After all, that's the primordial world created by Regal Pangu. Regal Pangu is the person with the highest comprehension among us humans. He even created more than one Master God tier nomological secret technique when he was still a true God tier. One of the Master God tier world secret techniques is called the Void Illusion Realm secret technique. It can hide the entire primordial world. Even Master God tier can't discover the location of the primordial world. If not for this Master God tier world secret technique, it would be impossible for Regal Pangu to have been seriously injured for so many years and not see any enemy who can find he. Patriarch Lu smiled. That's right. In fact, even we don't even know the true location of the primordial world. Our channel to the primordial world is just an exclusive passageway specially left for us humans by Regal Pangu before he fell asleep. He added. The primordial world is actually so safe, Zhou Zhou exclaimed. Then, he asked, but this time, we're sending most of the subjects of the human race to the primordial world. Among so many human race subjects, there must be spies from the people of foreign races. What if they use some treasures to leak the location of the primordial world after entering? Don't worry. The Yellow Emperor smiled and said, the exclusive passageway left for us by the Regal is to block all suspicious people with disloyal identities from entering the primordial world. It's a good opportunity to use this human migration to cleanse the traitors of our human race." Zhou Zhou nodded and did not ask further. The conversation between the speaker ended. A black-robed man with a cold and dignified face and a ghostly cultivator body stood up and looked at Zhou Zhou obsequiously. "Your Majesty, sixth speaker, I would like to order 5 galaxy ships from your blazing sun kingdom. Do you have time to build them?" He also knew that the sixth speaker would probably be very busy in the coming days. Zhou Zhou looked at him and his information appeared in his mind. Lord Yin Luo. He was one of the Grand Unity Golden Immortal Realm cultivators of the human race. Moreover, he had attained the Grand Unity Golden Immortal Realm through the Tao of Ghost Cultivators. It could be said that it had not been easy for him to come this far. It was said that the other party's high-level kingdom was not on the surface. Instead, it was in a place deep underground where more than 1 billion ghostly cultivators gathered. From the looks of it, if it was a normal human country, it could actually establish an empire. If not for the fact that the other party could not break through to the Zenith Heaven Golden Immortal Realm because of the Ghost Immortal's body and the various limitations of the Netherworld Ghost Domain, the human race might even have the 6th Empire now. Furthermore, among the human god spirits who had come to support him the night before, there was this one in front of him. Therefore, Zhou Zhou had a good impression of him. Sure. When Zhou Zhou heard the other party's words, he agreed without hesitation. Then, he explained, however, "Lord Yin Luo, you have to wait for a day or 2. You can only start working after I complete the order in my hand. In addition, you have to pay for the materials, manufacturing costs, patent fees, transportation fees, and a series of other fees and materials. If you're willing, we can add each other's contact details first. Then, you can contact the official personnel in charge of this matter in the Blazing Sun Kingdom." Sure. King Yin Luo was overjoyed. The speed of the galaxy was seen by all the immortals and gods. It was really top-notch. As long as it was given sufficient energy, any ordinary life form could control it with their voice and allow it to unleash the speed of a true god tier. Most importantly, the internal world of the galaxy was huge and could accommodate 1 billion life forms. If it was a ghost cultivator, it could even accommodate 10 billion ghost cultivators. In that case, he could completely transfer his ghost realm kingdom to the galaxy, and he would no longer be bound by regions. Therefore, he naturally wanted such a top-grade spaceship very much. Upon hearing that the deal between Zhou Zhou and Lord Yin Luo had ended so easily, the other upper echelons of the human race could not sit still anymore. They hurriedly spoke, wanting to sign a deal with Zhou Zhou to order the galaxy. Zhou Zhou naturally did not reject any of them. After the upper echelons of the human race discussed the specific share of the deal with Zhou Zhou, he did a rough calculation and realized that he had accepted nearly 200 galaxy deals in a short period of time. If not for the limitations of the spaceship's materials, this number would probably be more than doubled. Zhou Zhou grinned inwardly. This list would probably take a long time to complete. He had to let Wenya build more spaceship manufacturing factories so that he could speed up the manufacturing process. Then, Zhou Zhou thought of something and gradually frowned. Why? The Yellow Emperor noticed the change in Zhou Zhou's expression and asked worriedly. Chapter 898 The Blazing Sun Kingdom's territory spans across 10 billion kilometers. It's nothing serious. Zhou Zhou's brows relaxed as he explained, as you all know, I'm currently ranked first on the Lord's faction points ranking. Originally, there was a huge gap between me and the Lords of all races ranked behind me. I also thought that I could rely on my faction points advantage and continue to maintain my first place position for a long time. However, not long ago, I suddenly realized that the lords of the top-notch people of foreign races behind me suddenly closed the gap between their points and mine. They were even about to surpass me. Later on, after some investigation, I discovered that the reason why they were able to obtain a large number of faction points in a short period of time was because they had taken over the faction quests of the lords of the people of foreign races who were close to their races. They had spent a small price to complete these faction quests and obtain the mission rewards for these faction quests. It was through this method that they obtained a large number of faction points in a short period of time. Originally, I wanted to take advantage of this meeting to use this method to increase my faction points. But now, Zhou shook his head. I'm afraid I won't be able to do that. The humans were already about to give up on human territory and retreat to the primordial world. With such a faction already disbanded, how could he obtain faction quests? Next, if I want to obtain a large number of faction points, I can either obtain faction quests from other races, such as the Elven Empire. Or I can use the Eye of the Heavens' anger to find those targets that are targeted by the Supreme Will. By killing them, I will be able to obtain the universal general faction points on them. Zhou pondered. The Yellow Emperor and the others also understood why Zhou was worried. Yes, with the retreat of the human race, not only were the native humans greatly affected, even the Lord of all races who relied on the native factions of the human race to survive and develop would be greatly affected, just like Zhou. The Yellow Emperor pondered for a few seconds before saying, if we humans want to give up our territory and migrate to the primordial world, we will definitely not be able to hide from the enemy forces around us. They will definitely send troops to stop us. Therefore, when the time comes, we will issue faction quests to the lords of the myriad races that are affiliated to our faction. Therefore, when the time comes, we will issue faction quests to the lords of the myriad races that are affiliated to our faction. At that time, you should be able to obtain about 1 billion faction points. The Yellow Emperor said. Then, he shook his head, but that was to the extent of it. After Zhou obtained these faction points, they should have already led most of the human subjects into the primordial world. After that, they would no longer be able to provide Zhou with faction quests and faction points. We can introduce all the people of foreign races that are on good terms with us to you so that you can establish diplomatic relations with them. These people of foreign races shouldn't be the targets of those enemies. This way, you can receive their faction quests and continue to obtain a steady stream of faction points. Patriarch Lu suddenly thought of this and immediately said. Sure. I'll send you a list of friendly races later. When the time comes, on one hand, you can accept their faction quests and obtain faction points. On the other hand, you can also slightly showcase your strength and make them more loyal to our cooperation. In the future, they will also be one of the things you can rely on to fight for the strongest lord of all races in the future. The Yellow Emperor said. Zhou nodded. The Yellow Emperor nodded as well. Then, he looked at the upper echelons of the human race and said loudly, everyone, even though in the next few days, we will be forced to enter the primordial world and hide for a period of time. But that doesn't mean we'll keep hiding. Especially after we have the equipment, skill books, and class change certificate given to us by the sixth speaker, we have to go out and truly transform these items into the strength of our soldiers. We have to use this opportunity to improve ourselves. When we have enough strength in the future, we will naturally leave the primordial world and prove our new strength to those former enemies. Everyone, the Yellow Emperor looked at the upper echelons of the human race and said slowly in a deep voice, I hope that our human race can stand up tall in the future and not have to withstand the current calamity. Yes. Everyone said solemnly. In the next 2 hours, Zhou and the upper echelons of the human race discussed the specific details of the future deal. After discussing the general details, the meeting finally ended. Zhou did not say much. After bidding farewell to everyone, he left the conference room and walked out of the night temple. He looked at the dazzling light of the sun in the sky and narrowed his eyes slightly. The sun here was naturally not the sun of the solar system, but one of the 2 largest stars in the supreme continent or even the endless heavens. The sun here was naturally not the sun of the solar system, but one of the two largest stars in the supreme continent or even the endless heavens. The size of these two stars was inconceivably large. Even the Master God Tier's boundless universe and even the world created by the Supreme God realm were not as huge as the two strongest stars, Tai Yin and Tai Yang. At this moment, Zhou Zhou was looking at the huge sun and star, and he was thinking about what had just been discussed at the meeting. Especially regarding his battle that forced the entire human race to migrate to the primordial world. Even though no one said anything on the surface, they should more or less be resentful of me, right? Zhou Zhou took a deep breath. If he wanted them to dispel the resentment in their hearts, it would depend on how they developed in the future and what kind of future they could give to the human race and them. Time passed quickly. Night fell. Advance Grade Lord's Paradise. In the lounge, Zhou Zhou was sitting cross-legged on a green lotus mat. He was using this special treasure that could speed up the recovery of his mental strength and soul fatigue to recover the energy he had consumed after using the Eye of the Heavens anger during the day. Under the green light of the green lotus mat, his originally pale face regained color at a speed visible to the naked eye. A moment later, he opened his eyes, which were filled with energy. He did not look like he had used up too much energy at all. What a treasure! As expected of the spoils of war found on the bodies of high-tier deity-level scarlet god spirits. Even though it's a special treasure and doesn't have a specific grade, to me, it's already not inferior to some top-notch high-tier deity-level divine artifacts. Zhou Zhou touched the green lotus cushion under him and sighed sincerely. At this moment, Alia's voice sounded outside the door. Your Majesty, Legion Commander Bai Yun has returned with her army and is waiting outside. Let her in. Zhou Zhou immediately said. Yes, Your Majesty. Alia didn't say anything else. A moment later, he heard the sound of the door opening and Bai Yun walked over. How did it go? Zhou Zhou went straight to the point. Your Majesty, the gods, the heroes, and I have conquered a total of 58 beginner kingdoms and 3 intermediate kingdoms in one day. Currently, there are no longer any other lord factions within a radius of 10 billion kilometers of the Blazing Sun Kingdom. They are all His Majesty's territory. Bai Yun said in a deep voice. Chapter 899 The Fake Uncrowned King of the Human Race. Zhou Zhou. How many extraordinary territory tokens and extraordinary tier territory tokens did you obtain? Zhou Zhou immediately asked. According to His Majesty's request, we demolished a total of 50 extraordinary tier cities and obtained 50 extraordinary tier territory tokens. In the end, we still retain 25 top-notch extraordinary tier territories. The 50 extraordinary tier territory tokens are all in this spatial ring. After Bai Yun finished speaking, she handed a white spatial ring to Zhou Zhou. After Zhou Zhou received it, his consciousness entered it and immediately saw the extraordinary tier territory token neatly placed. A smile appeared on his face. As such, the last 2 requirements of the territory upgrade requirement, 10 extraordinary tier cities and 50 extraordinary tier territory tokens were all satisfied. He could upgrade his territory now. However, he was not in a hurry to upgrade his territory immediately. Instead, he first looked at the summary of the spoils of war that Bai Yun had sent him. He took a rough look and then lost interest. This was because the total military strength of these 58 beginner kingdoms and 3 intermediate kingdoms only reached 200 million. It was completely incomparable to the battle involving tens of billions of soldiers he fought last night. There were also very few loots. The total value of the spoils of war of more than 60 people of foreign races was only about 300,000 legendary tier mist cores. This was also because of the enhancement of the King of Loots. Otherwise, it would not even be this number. It's still business to make money. Zhou Zhou sighed. When he thought about how he could obtain 1 billion legendary tier mist cores in one transaction, he was still a little excited. The 300,000 legendary tier mist core was a little boring in comparison. He closed the lute's summary and casually said, "Remember to collect the architectural blueprints of the defeated countries and place them in the new territory in the future." Zhou Zhou then told Bai Yun about the human race wanting to hand over the territory of the three empires to him. Bai Yun was immediately stunned. She wondered at this moment, even with her dead loyalty, if she had heard wrongly. However, she quickly came around. His Majesty could not be wrong, nor could he joke about such a thing. Therefore, what His Majesty said must be true. She immediately thought of something and immediately became excited. "Doesn't that mean that your Majesty will almost be equivalent to the master of the human race in the High Continent in 2 days?" Bai Yun said. "Master of the human race? Why are you?" Zhou Zhou was stunned. Just as he was about to say something, he suddenly reacted and stood rooted to the ground. Yes, of the 5 true god tiers of the human race, one was sleeping, one was undergoing nirvana, and the other was sealed. The remaining patriarch Lu and Bai He also had to bring most of the humans to retreat to the primordial world. After they completely retreated into the primordial world, wouldn't he be the only human in the entire High Continent who still had the combat strength of a true god tier on the surface? In addition, he was the 6th speaker of the human race. Without the other true god tier speakers, he was the true and unique highest level of the human race. At that time, even if he did not admit that he was the current master of the human race, the other humans who stayed in the supreme continent or even the myriad worlds would probably support him as the current master of the human race because of his status, strength, achievements, and reputation. At the thought of this, Zhou Zhou was stunned. How did he inexplicably become the highest authority of the human race? The Yellow Emperor and the others didn't mention this either. Could it be that they wanted him to discover it? This discovery was too surprising. Zhou Zhou thought for a while and suddenly laughed. Was this a situation of the monkey would be the king without a tiger in the mountain? Even with his strength, he was not much weaker than a real tiger. The title of the master of the human race was naturally a little overboard. But a fake uncrowned king was more like it. Zhou Zhou mocked himself in his heart. The humans haven't left. It's just a temporary strategic retreat. This king is only staying because of the protection of the Supreme Agreement. There's nothing to say. Don't say something like the master of the human race so easily in the future. Zhou Zhou said calmly. "Yes, Your Majesty." Bai Yun hurriedly said. Zhou Zhou acknowledged. Then, he handed over the target map and the corresponding rough information he had obtained from using the Eye of the Heavens anger today to the other party. Bai Yun immediately took it respectfully. "This is a new target to kill. Hand it over to Wu Tu later and let him lead the Heavenly Map Army to conduct a detailed investigation. The more detailed the information, the better. Don't fail miserably. In 3 days, you will begin to kill these targets. 3 days ago, our main troops will be responsible for protecting the humans and safely retreating to the primordial world." Zhou Zhou made arrangements. "Yes, Your Majesty." Bai Yun said respectfully. Then, she opened the map and took a look. She could not help but click her tongue. This was because there were a total of 26 targets on it. From low-tier deity-level elementary-grade Scarlet God Spirits to high-tier deity-level advanced-level Scarlet God Spirits, everything was available. Moreover, it was filled with their location and the reason why they had to be killed. They were either the commander of the powerful Scarlet Army, or, even though they were weak, they were extremely talented geniuses, Scarlet God Spirits, or Scarlet Monsters with ordinary strength but an important position that could play a huge role in this war. Incredible. Even though His Majesty wants us to kill very few targets, they are all important existences in this calamity of the myriad races. Perhaps this calamity of the myriad races in the eyes of the life forms of the myriad races will end in His Majesty's hands in advance. Bai Yun's eyes lit up, as the most loyal person under Zhou Zhou, her fanaticism and admiration for Zhou Zhou had even surpassed the concept of being dead loyal. No matter what Zhou Zhou wanted to do, she felt that His Majesty would definitely be able to complete it. Even if Zhou Zhou asked her to die now, she would not hesitate or even think twice before committing suicide. You can leave now and rest well. You should be tired after these 2 days. At this moment, Zhou Zhou's voice sounded in her ear. Yes, Your Majesty. Bai Yun did not retort. The battle the night before was too intense. It had indeed consumed a lot of her energy. The divine power in her body had yet to completely recover. She did not say anything else. After taking her leave from Zhou Zhou, she left the advanced grade Lord's Paradise and planned to discuss with Wu Tu to gather information on the targets they needed to kill and protect the humans as they retreated safely to the primordial world before going to rest. After Bai Yun left, Zhou Zhou slowly walked out of the advanced grade Lord's Paradise and looked at the building in front of him. The next second, as 20 trillion units of basic materials, 10,000 extraordinary tier mist cores, 5 million origin crystals, 50 million units of basic elemental gems, 60 million units of high-level elemental gems, and 50 extraordinary tier territory tokens disappeared. Boom. An illusory silver light immediately covered the entire advanced grade Lord's Paradise. Zhou Zhou raised his eyebrows. The improvement this time seems to be different from the previous improvement. He was a little surprised. However, he did not think too much about it and began to wait quietly. A moment later, the illusory silver light dissipated. Under Zhou Zhou's surprised gaze, the previous advanced grade Lord's Paradise had already disappeared, leaving only an empty space the size of more than 3 million square kilometers. A square spatial passageway had unknowingly stood in midair. The 7 colored clouds around it were dense and emitted extremely rich promotion energy. It spread in all directions, making it look divine. Follow current novels on Top Novelfool. Calm. Chapter 900 Upgrading the Territory. Gorlo's Potential Blessing Orb. Zhou Zhou, who was the closest, only took a casual breath and circulated the Chaos Origin Manual slightly to absorb a huge amount of promotion energy. This promotion energy was even comparable to the promotion energy given to him by killing more than 10 yellow gold tier enemies. Zhou Zhou's eyes widened. My God! So much promotion energy! Didn't this mean that as long as he had enough potential, coupled with a set of self-cultivation techniques that could absorb the energy of advancement, even if the other party did not kill any life form, he could easily advance to the yellow gold tier and white platinum tier. Over time, it was not impossible for him to reach the diamond tier and extraordinary tier. Could this spatial passageway be? Zhou Zhou had a guess as he looked at the spatial passageway. At this moment, the text notification finally appeared. Congratulations, your advanced grade Lord's Paradise has successfully been upgraded to an epic tier elementary grade building and advanced to a small blessed land. Your territory has been upgraded to yellow gold tier elementary grade. Your extraordinary tier advanced grade 5 elements amplification array has successfully been upgraded to the epic tier elementary blessed land myriad formation. Territory stone tablet endurance increased to 30 billion/30 billion. Your territory has expanded to 1 million kilometers x 1 million kilometers x 100,000 kilometers. All fog monsters within the territory of the new territory have been expelled. Scarlet fog will not appear in any of your territories. You have received an upgrade reward, Basic Construction Blueprint Treasure Chest, Extraordinary Tier Elementary Grade. Lord Talent Notification, the upper limit of the enemy Lord's faction that you can induce insight defection has been increased to the Intermediate True God Tier Grade. Lord Talent Hint, your monster ranches can be upgraded. Lord Talent Hint, your mysterious caravan faction has increased. Lord Talent Hint, the strength of the clergy in your Goddess of Lives shelter has increased. The next second, an even more dignified and loud voice sounded. Cerulean Planet World Channel Lord Announcement, congratulations to the Lord of the Blazing Sun, becoming the first Lord to upgrade his territory to Diamond Tier. Reward, Supreme Treasure Chest +1, Reputation Rating +1, Unique Title of the Race, Glory of the Pioneer 6 has advanced to Glory of the Pioneer 7. Cerulean Planet's entire channel's Lord announcement. Congratulations to the Lord of the Blazing Sun. Cerulean Planet's entire channel's Lord announcement. Congratulations to the Lord of the Blazing Sun. Zhou heaved a sigh of relief before a smile appeared on his face. Even though it took a long time to upgrade the territory this time, fortunately, in the end, he still obtained this advanced title. The obsessive-compulsive disorder was satisfied. Comfortable. He was not in a hurry to look at the rewards after upgrading his territory. Instead, he opened the World Channel and all the camp channels. As expected, almost all the lords of Cerulean Planet were discussing the matter of his territory advancing to the epic tier. Zhou smiled. He was no longer as excited over such a small matter as before. Of course, he was definitely happy. Then, he first replied to his friend's congratulatory message and opened the latest title message. Title: The Glory of the Pioneer 7, Title Quality, Unique Title of the Race, Title Effect 1, You are famous among the Cerulean Planet Lords. More people admire your reputation and yearn to join your territory. The number of subjects you can summon through the gate of summoning every day plus 700%. Professional talents of the same level as the territory among the subjects summoned plus 8. Title Effect 2, same as before. Title Effect 3, when you become the first Cerulean Planet Lord to have an epic tier elementary grade territory, this title will be upgraded to Founder's Glory 8 and unlock more title effects. Title Introduction, same as before. Zhou nodded in satisfaction. The number of basic subjects summoned by his gate of summoning would double again every day from tomorrow on. Moreover, the number of professional talents at the same level as the territory will increase to 8. Moreover, there are 8 epic tier and elementary grade talents. Even though I don't lack epic tier talents now, who doesn't like freebies? A smile appeared on his face. Then, he looked at the supreme treasure chest. He first opened it and found a purple pearl the size of a human head. Zhou looked over curiously. A text message appeared. Treasure name, Gorlo's Potential Blessing Orb, Treasure Grade, Diamond Tier Elementary Grade, Treasure Effect. After fusing it into the territory stone tablet, it can slowly increase the upper limit of the potential of the life form in the territory until it reaches the epic tier elementary grade. Treasure Introduction, Gorlos is a master craftsman of the elves. Born with low potential, his greatest wish is to create a treasure that can eliminate the difference in talent. He believed that the reason why the world was in constant war was because the potential of the life forms was uneven in all aspects, causing the distribution of classes to be uneven. If the life forms were at the same height of potential, the life forms would grow to the same height in the end. That way, there would naturally be no difference between high and low, and there would be no motivation to fight for benefits. Without internal conflicts among the life forms, internal peace would appear, and the war would naturally end. Do you want to fuse? There's such a treasure. Zhou's eyes lit up. Regardless of whether Gorla's opinion was reliable or not, the effect of increasing his potential indeed surprised Zhou. This could be upgraded to the epic tier elementary grade. Moreover, it was an increase in the entire territory. Based on the number of subjects Zhou currently had, he could at least be effective against nearly 12 billion Blazing Sun Kingdom subjects. Most importantly, he did not overlap with other items that increased potential. In other words, the effects between them could be stacked. For example, the effect of the Sword of Xian Yuan's racial divine artifact that increased the potential of a large class, it could cause a large number of subjects with at least legendary tier elementary grade potential to appear in the Blazing Sun Kingdom. What a treasure! Zhou's eyes lit up as he looked at the purple orb. As expected of a product of the supreme treasure chest. They were all divine items among divine items. Gorlo's Potential Blessing Orb was no longer inferior to a general-purpose race divine artifact like the Lucky Star. The only drawback was that the speed at which it could increase its potential would be a little slow. However, it was already not bad if he could increase his potential. There was no need to be picky. Zhou solemnly put it away and prepared to fuse it into his kingdom's golden monument in a while. He looked up at the teleportation passageway of the blessed land in the air and opened the next requirement for the territory to level up. Then, he sighed helplessly. Construction upgrade, 20 trillion units of wood, 20 trillion units of fine sand, 20 trillion units of metal, 20 trillion units of stone, 10,000 epic tier mist core, 10 million origin crystals, 100 million units of basic elemental gems, 50 million units of thunder element gems, 50 million units of life elemental gems, 50 million units of death elemental gems, 1 epic tier city, 100 epic tier lifestyle professionals, 1,000 epic tier military professionals, 20 race heroes, 1 epic tier territory token. Basic materials, mist core, origin crystal, basic element gems, thunder element gems, epic tier lifestyle professionals and combat professionals, epic tier territory tokens and territories, and human heroes. I have all of them. But the life elemental gems are still inferior to the death elemental gems. Zhou shook his head. After upgrading his territory, he still had more than 10 million life elemental gems and more than 30 million death elemental gems in his hands. He still needed nearly 40 million life elemental gems and nearly 10 million death elemental gems to continue upgrading his territory. Fortunately, we don't need much. Let Bai Yun conquer the Crimson Kingdom more in the next 2 days. I should be able to collect it in a day or two. At that time, I can upgrade my territory again. At the thought of this, Zhou could not help but laugh. With his strength comparable to an empire-level lord, it would be much simpler to collect the resources needed to upgrade the kingdom. The speed at which his territory increased would probably be very fast until he advanced to an empire-level lord faction. Chapter 901 Blessed Land Myriad Formation. The Future of the Perfect Divine Kingdom. Zhou clicked on the Blessed Land Myriad Formation that he had obtained after upgrading his territory. The information of the array appeared. Array name, Blessed Land Myriad Formation, Array level, Extraordinary tier elementary grade, Array effect 1, Blessed Land. Not only can the Blessed Land gather the promotion energy between heaven and earth and greatly increase the density of the promotion energy in the territory, but it can also produce spiritual energy on its own, allowing the territory to satisfy the energy needs of the subjects and energy facilities in the territory even without relying on external spiritual energy. Living in the range of the Blessed Land Myriad Formation's array formation for a long time could improve the physical and soul aptitude of the territory's subjects and greatly increase the cultivation efficiency of the territory's subjects. The Blessed Land Myriad Formation can imperceptibly slowly increase and stabilize the providence of the territory's subjects. Array Effect 2, Myriad Convergence. The Blessed Land Myriad Formation can make it easier for living beings living in small grotto heavens to comprehend the laws of heaven and earth and reduce the difficulty of becoming immortals. Array Effect 3, Divine Kingdom Foundation. When the territory advances to the low-tier deity level elementary grade, or when the lord of the territory becomes a god, the blessed land can be used as the foundation of the divine kingdom and evolve into a perfect divine kingdom. Formation Upgrade Requirement. Upgrade as the territory upgrades. Array Description, a territory array created by the Supreme Will. It has various powerful abilities to assist the growth of the Lord and territory. It can even be used as the foundation of the divine kingdom to create a perfect divine kingdom. Perfect divine kingdom, a perfect divine kingdom. Only when a territory advances to the low-tier deity level elementary grade or a lord becomes a god through faith can they obtain the blessing of the Supreme Will. When evolving a divine kingdom, they can obtain the help of the supreme power to evolve a perfect divine kingdom. A god spirit with a perfect divine kingdom would not only have an incomparably stable divine kingdom that would not be easily destroyed by the enemy, but no matter how high its potential was, when it advanced to a higher level, the god spirit would be blessed by the Supreme Will, increasing the chances of successfully advancing by 1%. Moreover, when the advancement failed, the divine kingdom would not be damaged by the failure of the advancement. Zhou Zhou's eyes widened. Oh my God! This blessed land myriad formation actually had so many benefits. Not only was he stronger in terms of gathering and creating promotion energy, increasing the cultivation efficiency of the subjects, and improving the aptitude of the territory's subjects, it could slowly increase and stabilize the providence of the territory's subjects. It could also assist in comprehending the laws of heaven and earth. Most importantly, he had also become the foundation of the divine kingdom. Furthermore, after becoming a god, he could even become a perfect divine kingdom. The various benefits of this perfect divine kingdom. As a legendary tier advanced grade superhuman, Zhou Zhou's next step was to face the stage of becoming a god. His heart itched as he watched. He looked at it for a while and gradually calmed down. The foundation of this divine kingdom will be extremely important to me. Zhou Zhou thought to himself. Then, he looked at the information on the foundation of the divine kingdom in this blessed land myriad formation. As he read, he suddenly noticed something. Since the foundation of this divine kingdom evolved into a divine kingdom, there were two different conditions. One was that the territory would advance to the low-tier deity level elementary grade and naturally evolve into a divine kingdom. The other was that the Lord would become a god through faith. When the time came, the blessed land would also evolve into a divine kingdom with the Lord. As long as one of the two conditions was met, one could form a perfect divine kingdom. What if both achievements were achieved? Would it create a more perfect divine kingdom? Zhou Zhou did not think too much about it and directly tried to ask the Supreme Will. The Supreme Will still loved this favored child of his, so it quickly gave an answer. Supreme Will Notification 1, since it is already a perfect divine kingdom, there is no more perfect divine kingdom. Supreme Will Notification 2, when the Lord of all races meet one of the conditions, the other condition doesn't need to be fulfilled. They can also become a perfect divine kingdom. Supreme Will Notification 3, however, a perfect divine kingdom is only the beginning of a divine kingdom. You still need to continue to increase the level of the divine kingdom's foundation to increase the level of the divine kingdom and make your divine kingdom stronger. Zhou Zhou was secretly shocked. Was it his imagination? Why did he feel that the Supreme Will was more concerned about him? Could it be because he had performed well recently? He thought about it and felt that this should be the reason. As a lord of all races who was favored by the Supreme Will, what he did could not be hidden from the Supreme Will. Moreover, seeing how well he had performed, the Supreme Will seemed to be even more concerned about him. It seemed to make sense. Even though that was what he thought, Zhou Zhou still appeared very respectful on the surface. Thank you for your guidance, Lord Supreme Will. The Supreme Will did not reply. Zhou Zhou smacked his lips as he pondered over a question. He wondered what level the will of the Supreme Will was at. His realm was will like light, but when facing the Abyss Will, he still felt that the other party was unfathomable. He did not even know where the other party's upper limit was. The Supreme Will that controlled all the wills of the Abyss Will, the immortal world, the heaven world, and so on would definitely be even more terrifying, right? He thought about it for a moment, then shook his head and stopped thinking about it. He looked at the blessed land teleportation channel in the sky and muttered to himself, I'm getting closer and closer to raising my territory to the low-tier deity level elementary grade. Work harder and strive to raise the territory to the low-tier deity level elementary grade as soon as possible. This way, I can go to the gate of summoning every day and freeload on the 9 god spirits. At that time, that is when the tidal glory of the pioneer will truly come into play. I'll set a small goal first. I'll raise the level of the territory to legendary tier elementary grade and take down the glory of the pioneer 8. Then, Zhou Zhou first entered his small blessed land to check what improvements he had obtained. Zhou Zhou was very satisfied with the result. First, the area had increased from more than 3 million square kilometers to more than 30 million square kilometers. This area was already comparable to the 2 bear countries on the cerulean planet. Due to the increase in area, the various construction facilities inside had also been greatly improved and expanded. Whether it was the cultivation room, study room, bedroom, military drill hall, viewing hall, game hall, and other buildings, the area had increased by about 10 times. Moreover, the various facilities inside had also been upgraded. Second, in the small blessed land, in addition to the various buildings mentioned above, there were also various practical and interesting buildings such as the Myriad Ingot Palace, the Lord's Palace, the Administration Hall, the Rare Treasure Palace, the 100 Kingdoms Palace, the Hall of Wonders, and the Myriad Sacred Rune Palace. Finally, the small blessed land that had been upgraded was no longer the original building complex, but more like a complete small world. In the world outside the palace complex, green mountains and clear waters could be seen everywhere. Birds and beasts were thriving, and spiritual flowers and rare treasures were competing with each other. It perfectly possessed all the elements that a small world should have. As expected of the foundation of the divine kingdom. Chapter 902 Upgrading the Gate of Summoning. The Crimson Law. It took more than an hour for Zhou Zhou to finish shopping. Then, after integrating Gorlo's potential blessing pearl into the kingdom's golden tablet, he called Aliyah over and asked her to call Mugu, Zheng Fugue, and Carol Moeli over. He took advantage of the free time to go to the Gate of Summoning. Zhou Zhou looked at the tall Gate of Summoning in front of him. With a thought, he used 400 billion units of basic materials and 10,000 extraordinary tier mist cores to upgrade the Gate of Summoning to epic tier elementary grade. A text notification appeared. Congratulations, your Gate of Summoning has been upgraded to epic tier elementary grade. You can summon 800 subjects every day. You will summon 600 professionals every day. Prompt: under the influence of the unique title of the race, Glory of the Pioneer 7, the number of subjects you can summon every day has reached 28,800. You will summon 608 professionals every day. Zhou Zhou's expression did not change after reading it. After the Gate of Summoning was upgraded to Extraordinary Tier Advanced Grade, the number of basic summoning subjects had reached a total of 2,800. After being buffed by the Glory of the Pioneer 7, it directly increased by 8 times, becoming 28,800 people. Compared to the Gate of Summoning of Extraordinary Tier Advanced Grade, he could summon 10,000 more people. However, even though 28,800 people were already a lot, it was naturally nothing to the current Zhou Zhou. It did not even cause him to feel emotional. He opened the next level up requirement of the Gate of Summoning. Construction upgrade: 500 billion units of wood, 500 billion units of fine sand, 500 billion units of metal, 500 billion units of stone, 1000 epic tier mist core, territory level upgraded to epic tier intermediate grade. Zhou Zhou noted down the upgrade requirements and retracted his gaze. He turned around and returned to the small blessed land. In the small blessed land. In the meeting hall, Zhou Zhou sat cross-legged on the golden throne, while His Highness was Mugu, Zheng Fugue, and Carol Moeli. At this moment, the three of them looked at the dazzling palace around them, their eyes filled with surprise. My palace and this blessed land are not bad, right? Zhou Zhou smiled. Your Majesty, your small blessed land is really magical. From here, I can even sense my perception of the law of life more clearly. Carol Moeli spoke first. Your subject's perception of the Crimson Law has also become a little clearer. Mugu nodded. This subject's perception of the law of commerce has also become a little clearer. Zheng Fugue chuckled. But that's it. Zhou Zhou said indifferently, not minding their flattery. As the master of this small blessed land, he was naturally the clearest about the environment here. It was only a small blessed land with an epic tier elementary grade. Even if it could allow life forms to have a clearer perception of the laws, it was equivalent to making an 800-degree nearsighted person become only 750-degree nearsighted. There was an improvement, but it was better than nothing. In this small blessed land, what Zhou valued the most was the function of the divine kingdom's foundation. Everything else was ordinary to the current Zhou. Perhaps when the territory level increased to low-tier deity level elementary grade, these functions might be able to shine brightly. From today onwards, you'll move in together. This small blessed land is very large. You can choose a spare room to stay in, or if you like freedom, you can just open a cave abode outside. I will also move the reincarnation sacred palace here and place it in the myriad ingot palace. At that time, if you want to use the time world to comprehend laws or improve your other abilities, go to the myriad ingot palace. When you return, tell this news to the others. Zhou said. Those who could obtain his recognition and use the time world to comprehend laws to increase their abilities were all talents among the talents of the Blazing Sun Kingdom. He naturally had to make use of this small blessed land to increase their growth speed. Yes, Your Majesty. The three of them said respectfully. Now, let's talk about your respective improvements. Zhou said calmly. When Mu Gu heard this, he was the first to stand up. Your Majesty, I am now an epic tier elementary grade rancher. In addition, the number of monster shepherds under me has increased from 50,000 to 100,000. The number of monster ranches in my ranchland plain has also increased from 1,000 to 1,500. Moreover, the maximum capacity of each monster ranch has increased from 1 million to 1.5 million. Moreover, my ranchland plain has also been upgraded. Just the area alone has increased from more than 10 million square kilometers to more than 50 million square kilometers. I dare to guess that when I advance to the legendary tier elementary grade, my ranchland plain should be able to officially advance from a small plain to a standard 1,000 crimson world. He said respectfully. Zhou raised his eyebrows. Logically speaking, if extraordinaires wanted to obtain their own small world through advancement, they had to at least advance to the low-tier deity level elementary grade and possess a divine kingdom that was comparable to a small world. Mu Gu had actually broken this rule. Could he have his own small world at the extraordinary tier elementary grade? Was it because of the Lord Talent, or the Crimson Rule? Zhou pondered silently. The Crimson Rule, that was the nomological path that Lord Crimson Overlord cultivated. In terms of level, it was inferior to the Supreme Law, but in terms of power at the same level it might not necessarily be able to defeat the Crimson Law. This could be seen from the fact that the Supreme Will and the Crimson Overlord had been fighting for countless years without a victor. He thought about it for a while and stopped thinking about it. No matter how powerful the Crimson Rule was, Mu Gu was still his loyal subordinate. There was no need for him to let his imagination run wild. And he thought of something else. If that's the case, then wouldn't the number of ranch monsters that the ranchland plain can produce tomorrow reach 25 billion? At the thought of this, Zhou's eyes lit up. They'll use 400 of the 500 new monster ranches to nurture the yellow talisman Dao soldiers. The 100 new monster ranches will all be used to nurture the violent storm demon spirits. He immediately said. As such, among his 1,500 monster ranches, there were a total of 1,000 monster ranches nurturing yellow talisman Dao soldiers. 300 monster ranches to nurture the violent storm demon spirit. The other 200 monster ranches continued to nurture the mechanical fear falcon, the iron-eating bear, and the withered tree. This way, he would be able to obtain 4.5 billion yellow talisman Dao soldier recruitment books, 4.5 billion yellow talisman Dao soldier class change certificate, 1.35 trillion violent storm spirit recruitment books, and 1.35 trillion violent storm spirit class change certificate. The total number of soldiers under his command could even break through the 20 billion mark given 2 days. Follow current novels on Top Novelfool.com. Chapter 903 Zhou becomes a god. 1. At this thought, a smile appeared on Zhou's face. Every time the monster ranch improved, it would bring him a huge surprise. Of course, in fact, Monster Ranch's epic tier Lord talent was not very abnormal. If a lord only had the Lord talent of Monster Ranch, he would at most obtain a safe place to train his troops. The most important reason why Zhou Zhou could unleash its effects to such an abnormal extent was that it had the support of the mythical tier, the only Lord talent, King of Lutes. The two complemented each other, allowing the Monster Ranch to unleash such an astonishing talent effect. Yes, Your Majesty. Mu Gu said respectfully after hearing Zhou Zhou's words. Zhou Zhou looked at Zheng Fugui. Seeing this, Zheng Fugui also stepped forward. Your Majesty, the number of mysterious merchants has increased from 200,000 to 500,000. The number of carriages transporting goods has also increased to 500,000. Also, all the mysterious merchants' abilities have been upgraded to the intermediate grade epic tier. The internal space of each mysterious merchant's mysterious ring has also increased from the original 10 million cubic meters to 50 million cubic meters. In addition, our treasure hunting ability has also increased in probability. It's easier to discover hidden treasures in the world during the business process. Not bad. Zhou Zhou nodded slightly. Then, he looked at Carol Moali. Your Majesty, the shelter of the Goddess of Life now has a total of 100 million clergymen, 100 million priests, 100 million nuns, and 1.5 billion holy knights of life. My strength has also advanced to the high-tier deity level intermediate grade. Carol Moali stepped forward and said with a faint smile. Zhou Zhou smiled and nodded. As such, the upper limit of resurrection in his territory had been raised to the high-tier deity level intermediate grade. High-tier deity level intermediate grade god spirits and soldiers below could fight without any hesitation. From today onwards, among the god spirits under him, other than Heras, the only high-tier deity level advanced grade god spirit, all the other god spirits could fight without fear of death. This was undoubtedly a huge improvement to his territory's combat strength. Then, Zhou Zhou chatted with them for a while before getting them to inform the gods, high-level generals, high-level lifestyle professionals, and the geniuses of the Blazing Sun Kingdom with extremely high potential in the other territories to settle down in the small blessed lands. Then, they would study the laws in the Myriad Ingots Hall together. Myriad Ingot Palace was a special building that could increase life form's perception of laws. Even though it was not big, it could take down tens of thousands of people. While they were out looking for someone, Zhou Zhou came to Myriad Ingot Palace alone. He found the best ingot palace in the main hall and entered it to begin comprehending the laws. However, less than a minute after he sat down to comprehend the Lord's laws, he opened his eyes in surprise. My law comprehension efficiency has actually increased so much. Compared to the previous time when I comprehended the Lord's laws, the efficiency of my law comprehension this time is at least 5 to 6 times higher. He fell into deep thought, then gradually came back to his senses. He had recently obtained too many treasures that could increase the effects of law comprehension. There was no need to mention the Myriad Ingot Palace. The deep abyss had provided him with a portion of the Lord's Law talent and Lord's Law cultivation experience. It had also greatly increased his efficiency in comprehending Lord's Law. Not to mention the enhancement of the Holy Record, Regal Sage Dao Sword, and other race divine artifacts. In addition, during this period of time, he had increased the level of his Lord talent in large quantities, directly increasing his own Lord talent. With all kinds of abilities, talents, treasures, and divine artifacts on him, he had unknowingly become a fully deserving super genius in the Lord's Law. When he thought of this, he suddenly had a feeling. The opportunity to become a god is tonight. He muttered and took a deep breath. After calming himself down, he first sent a telepathic message to Heras, Qi Xiantian, and the other immortals to protect him. Then, he entered the time world again with a calm mind and began to comprehend the Lord's laws. His Majesty is about to become a god. Upon receiving the news, Heraus and the other god spirits were shocked. They immediately contacted the other god spirits, heroes, and high-ranking generals and began to set up defenses to prevent His Majesty's advancement to God Spirit from being accidentally interrupted. In less than a moment, everything from the capital of the Blazing Sun Kingdom to the entire Blazing Sun Kingdom was set up like an iron bucket. Even if a true god tier being descended, he would probably be able to stall for a while. How long has His Majesty been in the High Continent? He's actually about to become a god, even though his strength was average. Zhe Wu, who was rather aloof, was completely convinced after learning that Zhou Zhou was about to become a god. To be able to advance to become a god spirit in such a short period of time, in the history of the myriad worlds, other than some special circumstances, such as the divine spark heavenly gift, His Majesty could be said to be unique. Moreover, His Majesty is a lord, a peerless lord with unparalleled talent. Qi Xuanshan's expression was solemn with obvious emotions. If His Majesty wants to become a god and become an immortal, the difficulty is hundreds or thousands of times higher than other life forms. However, His Majesty is actually about to become an immortal in such a short period of time. It's not an exaggeration to say that His Majesty's talent and luck are number one in history. The others nodded silently. Before His Majesty becomes a god spirit, we must seal the news. Nothing must happen. Now, I'll assign you your positions and specific responsibilities. As the First Legion commander of the Blazing Sun Kingdom, Bai Yun began to give orders without hesitation. The other god spirits, heroes, and generals did not object and began to carry out Bai Yun's orders. Time passed quickly. In the blink of an eye, more than half of the night passed. When dawn arrived. Boom! A roar that seemed to come from the depths of his heart and reality sounded. At this moment, all the living beings in the Blazing Sun Kingdom heard this roar. In the night sky, at this moment, countless stars suddenly lit up with extremely dazzling light. These lights were connected to each other and actually formed an incomparably noble and majestic dragon that stretched for thousands of kilometers. It was the regal dragon, Ao Zun. At that moment, he was entrenched in the starry sky. He was like the Lord of the Stars and the ruler of the universe, looking down at the small blessed land. It was as if he could see Zhou Zhou, who was sitting cross-legged in the myriad ingots hall, emitting a nine-colored divine light. The nine-colored divine light was divided into 5 colors: green, yellow, red, white, and black, as well as chaos, gray, dark purple, and gold. Among them, green, yellow, red, white, and black represented the Lord's laws. The other 4 colors were controlled by the Lord's laws. Chaos represented the laws of chaos and came from the chaos human bloodline. Gray represented the law of the end, which came from the Lord Profession, the Lord of the End. The dark purple represented the abyssal laws and came from the bloodline of the deep abyss. The golden color represented the laws of light and came from his light sacred dragon bloodline. These were also the 4 most important and most powerful nomological laws on Zhou Zhou. Chapter 904 Zhou Zhou becomes a god, too, at this moment. Buzz. The sword of Xian Yuan and the regal sage Dao sword at Zhou Zhou's waist suddenly emitted sword hums. At the same time, Zhou Zhou slowly opened his eyes. His eyes actually emitted incomparably dazzling 9-colored divine light. They were like 2 pillars of light that pierced through the sky and shot towards the regal dragon in the starry sky. When the regal dragon saw this, it roared angrily and left the starry sky. From the distant starry sky, it turned into a golden dragon pillar of light and rushed towards Zhou Zhou on the ground. In the blink of an eye, it split into 2 and threw them into Zhou Zhou's body and the regal sage Dao sword at his waist. The 4 of them quickly fused together. After fusing, Zhou Zhou's body had an additional supreme aura. The surface of the regal sage Dao sword also had an incomparably noble aura. Zhou Zhou's body slowly floated up and finally stopped in the sky above the small blessed land. He scanned his surroundings. The entire small blessed land was glowing with golden light, making this space look very sacred. Zhou came to a realization. This small blessed land sensed that its lord was about to advance to a god spirit and was already prepared to evolve itself into a complete divine kingdom at any time. Zhou smiled faintly and looked up at the starry sky. From now on, he would also become a member of the stars. And this was only the beginning. A divine light flashed in his eyes. Then, he followed the golden pillar of light left behind by the regal dragon and shot into the starry sky. In the blink of an eye, he fused into the starry sky and disappeared. When the civil and military officials on the ground saw this scene, their eyes were filled with excitement and desire. Only the gods and spirits were a little shocked. Because back when they became god spirits, there was no such earth-shattering phenomenon. What kind of god was His Majesty going to become? At the same time, the world phenomenon of the regal dragon's descent also shocked the super-experts of the high continent and even the endless heavens. They looked at the regal dragon's body from afar, feeling shocked and puzzled. As the most mysterious dragon, this legendary dragon rarely appeared in front of the world. What had happened in the Blazing Sun Kingdom to actually attract this existence's true body? They did not even think that someone had become a god. Only an extremely ancient existence could tell that the regal dragon was congratulating a certain existence on becoming a god. However, it was precisely because of this that the shock in their hearts was even greater than those existences who did not know the inside story. What kind of life form would attract a legendary tier existence like the regal dragon to congratulate them when they became gods? Even the number one race in the world, the original spirit race, or those unique special life forms, or even the legendary dragons who were born to become master god-tier gods, had never seen this existence appear. Blazing Sun Kingdom. The Lord of the Blazing Sun. Could it be? A guess that they did not want to believe appeared in their minds. In a special space, Zhou, who was wearing the Emperor Dragon robe, was looking at this world in a daze. This was a world where it was raining heavily. However, the rain here was not water droplets. Instead, they were specks of light that emitted gorgeous light. Where is this? Zhou was at a loss. Wasn't he about to use the foundation of the divine kingdom to evolve his own divine kingdom? Under normal circumstances, shouldn't he enter the deepest part of the interlayer of space and choose a secret place to build his divine kingdom and officially become a god spirit? Why did he come here as soon as he entered the starry sky? But fortunately, at this moment, he could feel that all his strength was still on him, including the king's treasure box, divine artifacts, race divine artifacts, and so on. He looked at the light spot in front of him and hesitated for a moment. Then, he reached out to take it. A pink dot landed on his palm. A sliver of nomological insight suddenly appeared in Zhou's mind. The name of this law was the law of longevity. This comprehension of the law of longevity allowed he to understand how to extend his lifespan, some spells that could extend the lifespan of other life forms, and an incomplete law skill called the longevity law. Zhou was stunned. He looked at the light spots that covered the entire world in front of him. Suddenly, an unbelievable guess appeared in his mind. He immediately went to pick up another gray dot. When this speck of gray light landed in his hand, he immediately understood that this speck of light represented the law comprehension of the corrosive laws. Then, as if he had gone crazy, he rushed into the place where the rain was the densest. At that time, a large number of nomological light spots landed on him. Law of light, law of divination, law of overturning, law of grass, law of ink, law of suffering, law of misfortune. All sorts of unbelievable law comprehensions appeared in his mind. The law comprehension contained in every drop of rainwater was enough for a life form to comprehend a path to becoming a god. Zhou was shocked and confused. What exactly was this place? It could actually give birth to such a magical rain. Could it be that this was the source of the laws? At this moment, a pure white light suddenly appeared in the sky, then slowly condensed into a pure white eye. Zhou Zhou was stunned and immediately reacted. This was the Supreme Eyes phenomenon manifested by the Supreme Will. Hence, he hurriedly said respectfully, "Greetings, Supreme Will. Lord of the Blazing Sun." A gender-neutral and indifferent voice sounded. "This is not the land of the origin of laws, but my supreme domain. You can understand it as, you have come around me." Zhou Zhou's heart skipped a beat, but he didn't say anything. Instead, he listened to the Supreme Will continue. "Even though you came around me, you are not in the same dimension as me, so you can't see me. You don't have to see me for the time being. As you are the first living being among the lords of the myriad races to become a god spirit with the Lord's law, I have specially bestowed you with a divine kingdom in my supreme domain. The endless nomological reign in front of you is only a small ability that my supreme domain shows. However, even so, it can greatly accelerate the growth of your divine kingdom after you establish your Lord's nomological path divine kingdom. Lord of the Blazing Sun. Build your divine kingdom here." The Supreme Will said. "Yes, Your Excellency." Zhou Zhou said respectfully. Then, his expression turned serious. The nine-colored light on his body shone brightly, and he said softly, "I am, the King of all living beings." As soon as he finished speaking, a nine-colored light, surrounded by the phantom of a small blessed land, suddenly appeared from his glabella. Then, it left his body and flew into the rain before floating in midair. It was the seed of the law skill, King. Divine Kingdom, founded. Zhou Zhou raised his right hand and tapped the seed gently. A vast amount of divine power surged out of his body infused into the law seed. At the same time, the supreme domain seemed to have sensed it too. A vortex sea that emitted countless lights appeared in the sky. Then, like a celestial river pouring down, endless divine power descended and surged into the seed of the law, King. Under the influx of the double divine power, the seed of the law, which was originally only the size of a fist, began to expand at a visible speed. His divine kingdom was born. Chapter 905 Zhou Zhou becomes a god, 2, Rumble. A majestic and glorious golden kingdom filled with a supreme aura expanded rapidly in all directions. In the blink of an eye, its diameter had reached 10,000 kilometers, and it was still rapidly expanding. 30,000 kilometers. 100,000 kilometers, 1 million kilometers. 10 million kilometers. When the Divine Kingdom building reached a diameter of 90 million kilometers, the expansion of the Divine Kingdom finally stopped. Right on the heels of that, a world barrier spread further away with the Divine Kingdom as the center, dividing the inside and outside of the barrier into two worlds. Inside the world barrier was the Divine Kingdom world that had expanded from the Divine Kingdom. This place would undergo natural evolution, or it would listen to the will of the God Spirit to interfere and evolve. It could appear as a continental world, or a celestial universe with planets and stars. It could also derive plane worlds and build a complete multiplane small Divine Kingdom world. It could also have nothing but a lonely Divine Kingdom. When the true believers, devout believers, fanatic believers, and Holy Spirit tier believers of the God Spirit died, their souls would ascend to the Divine Kingdom and accompany the God Spirit forever. The believers were not dead as long as the God Spirit was not destroyed. They would be free from the pain of birth, aging, illness, and death. As long as they were not killed, the believers who were promoted to the Divine Kingdom could basically proclaim eternal life. Outside the world barrier, even though it was not managed by the God Spirits, in order to protect the Divine Kingdom from being discovered, the God Spirits would usually set up layers of defense outside the Divine Kingdom world to protect the Divine Kingdom from being damaged. Even though Zhou Zhou was currently in the Supreme Domain and the chances of him discovering his Divine Kingdom were slim, he still decided to add a layer of defense to his Divine Kingdom. He opened his right hand and saw an illusory heart that seemed to reflect countless dream worlds appearing in his palm. It was the 9-headed Nightmare Realm Demon God's heart, a true God-tier advanced grade divine artifact. It shouldn't be a problem to protect my divine kingdom with this true God-tier advanced grade array, the 9 Realms Demon God Dreamfall Array, right? Zhou Zhou looked at the heart and muttered. With the 9 Worlds Divine Demon Dreamfall Array, let alone a true God-tier, even if 10 true God-tier descended, they might not be able to discover the location of his divine kingdom. Even if they discovered the location of his divine kingdom, if they dared to barge into his array formation, they would still be in danger of dying. In this way, unless a Master God tier descended, his divine kingdom would basically not be in any danger. And if the Master God tier really descended and discovered his divine kingdom and wanted to destroy it, if he really encountered such bad luck, Zhou Zhou would accept it. Perhaps even if a real Master God tier descends, he might not be able to destroy my divine kingdom. This is the territory of the Supreme Will after all. Not to mention Master God tier, even if the Abyss will descended here, it probably wouldn't dare to attack me casually, right? Moreover, the Supreme Will shouldn't ignore a genius lord like me and be suddenly destroyed by other experts, right? Zhou Zhou muttered in his heart. The Supreme Will was the true guardian of the divine kingdom in his heart. Even though this god of protection might not really attack at that time, the Supreme Domain had no time. After an unknown period of time, the expansion of the Divine Kingdom world was finally completed. After the expansion of the Divine Kingdom ended, a pure white water droplet fell from the sky and landed on Zhou Zhou's Divine Kingdom. It quickly fused into it. As a Divine Kingdom, Zhou Zhou could clearly sense that something had changed in his Divine Kingdom. This change was indescribable, but Zhou Zhou could sense that it was an extremely good change for the future development of his Divine Kingdom. It was not mixed with any malice. This should be the blessing of the Supreme Will. Zhou Zhou thought to himself. Then, he closed his eyes and began to sense the overall situation of the Divine Kingdom. After a few seconds, he opened his eyes with a look of surprise. The world diameter of my small world is actually 1 billion light-years. According to my inherited memories, this is already comparable to the diameter of some middle worlds, right? Zhou Zhou was shocked. Normally speaking, the small world that had just been born had a standard diameter of about 10 light-years. When it grew to the level of the middle world, its diameter was usually only 100 million light-years. As for his small world, its initial diameter was actually 1 billion light-years. This was already comparable to the size of the Middle Qian Divine Kingdom world of some veteran true God-tier elementary grade God spirits. Is it because I walked the God's path of the Lord's law and the strength of my chaotic sacred power increased again after becoming a God spirit? Or is there another reason? Zhou Zhou thought about why his Divine Kingdom and the Divine Kingdom world had become so huge. After figuring this out, he could also focus on improving in the future. He did not have to worry about not having a direction to improve. Firstly, he was a deity who had achieved the Lord's law path. Naturally, it was the most important reason. The Lord's laws governed all laws and controlled everything. It was not surprising that he could create a Divine Kingdom world with such a shocking diameter. Secondly, the strength of the chaotic sacred power in his body had increased again. The divine power energy in a God spirit's body was very important for building a Divine Kingdom. It could be said to be the basic material for building a Divine Kingdom. No matter how powerful his initial divine power was, he could build a Divine Kingdom of the corresponding height. As for the chaos sacred power that Zhou Zhou possessed, it was originally an all-round energy that was similar to divine power but higher than divine power possessed by the bloodline of the low-tier deity-level elementary grade chaos human. As the basic material for constructing the Divine Kingdom, he was naturally in charge of the chaos holy power. Even though after he became a God spirit, his chaos holy power did not undergo any qualitative changes. But even so, his chaos holy power was thousands of times stronger than before. Before he advanced to become a god spirit, the chaotic sacred power in his body was liquid water. After becoming a god spirit, the chaotic sacred power in his body had been strengthened thousands of times and condensed into incomparably hard solid ice. The two were naturally incomparable. Currently, he could use the low-tier deity-level elementary-grade chaotic sacred power, activate the king, and then use the true god-tier divine artifacts at the true god-tier level elementary grade. He could already perfectly unleash the powerful power of the true god-tier divine artifacts, and he could even do it with ease. Which meant he now had a combat strength comparable to a true god. Zhou was even confident that he could defeat some god spirits who had just advanced to the true god-tier elementary grade without true god-tier divine artifacts, even if they had high-tier deity-level divine artifacts. It did not seem surprising that such a powerful chaotic sacred power could build such a powerful divine kingdom and divine kingdom world. Apart from that, of course, Zhou's other bloodlines, talents, law skills, law comprehension, professions, skills. All of these added together should have contributed a large portion of his divine power. Zhou knew what to do. Then, his attention landed on the name of the immortal he had awakened. Even though he had taken the path of becoming a god spirit in the divine kingdom, he had also taken on the top extraordinary tier profession, the Qi practitioner. Therefore, after he had become a god spirit, his Qi practitioner profession had also successfully advanced to the true immortal realm. Naturally, he would have the names of both god and immortal at the same time. However, when he saw the name of his immortal god, his expression immediately changed slightly. Lord name, Lord of the Blazing Sun, God/Immortal, Common People's Regal, Low-tier Deity Level Elementary Grade/True Immortal Realm Elementary Grade. Why is my immortal name so special? What's the name of a regal? The alias of a lord's law is called the regal law. Zhou muttered. Chapter 906 Common People's Regal, Zhou. Weird, under normal circumstances, weren't they something god or something immortal usually? However, the name Common People's Regal sounded quite domineering. The common people here referred to all life forms. Naturally, this included the life forms of all races. Regal referred to the supreme and noble emperor. Common People's Regal could be understood as the emperor of all life forms. It was quite compatible with the incantation, I am the king of all life, that he chanted when he used the law skill, king. Just as Zhou was deep in thought, the Supreme Will's voice suddenly sounded. Regal. It refers to the unique title of becoming an immortal god with the Lord's law. Only living beings who walk the path of the Lord's law from the beginning and become immortals and gods are qualified to be called regal. As for the common people, it comes from your law skill, king. Thank you, Lord Supreme Will, for clearing my doubts. Zhou was instantly flattered. He did not expect his soft muttering to be able to attract the attention of the Supreme Will and clear his doubts. If Zhou did not know his background, he would have thought that he was the Supreme Will's biological son. The Supreme Will did not respond to Zhou's gratitude. Zhou didn't dare to pay it any mind. His gaze returned to the nine-headed nightmare realm demon god's heart on his right palm. He had a thought. The chaotic sacred power in his body flowed into the heart of the demon god. The next second, the heart soared into the sky and shot straight into his divine kingdom. It sat in the main hall of the divine kingdom, above Zhou's statue. Immediately after, Zhou's statue and the entire divine kingdom began to continuously inject chaotic sacred power into the nine-headed nightmare realm demon god's heart. Under the infusion of the mighty chaotic sacred power, the nine-headed nightmare realm demon god's heart suddenly lit up with a scarlet light. As soon as the scarlet light appeared, it spread rapidly in all directions. Before long, it reached 1 billion light-years away and arrived at the border of the Zhou divine kingdom. At this point, it did not stop. Instead, it continued to expand outwards until it reached about 10 billion light-years. At this moment, the Divine Kingdom world seemed to be enveloped by an incomparably huge scarlet light barrier. When Zhou Zhou saw this, he activated the 9 worlds demon god Dreamfall array. Just as this thought rose in his mind, the scarlet light barrier, which was 10 billion light-years in diameter, gradually retracted its scarlet light. After the light completely converged, an incomparably fantastic scene slowly appeared on its surface, as if it was a boundless dream from the myriad worlds. Right on the heels of that, this endless dream, along with the light barrier and the Divine Kingdom world inside it, slowly disappeared from the supreme domain, as if it had never appeared. Zhou Zhou heaved a sigh of relief. With this 9 worlds demon god fallen dream array, his divine kingdom should be safe under most circumstances. Then, he wasn't in a hurry to leave. Instead, he sat cross-legged in the void and meditated to circulate the Chaos Origin Manual to recover his chaotic sacred power. The Chaos Origin Manual was a supreme cultivation manual created by the legendary Chaos humans. It could be cultivated from the Qi refinement stage to the perfected Saint realm, Master God tier advanced grade. Zhou Zhou naturally had no problem cultivating it now. Moreover, Zhou Zhou noticed something else. There seemed to be a huge difference in the flow of time between the supreme domain and the high continent. He would realize that not much time had passed when he returned to the high continent no matter how long he stayed in the supreme domain. Therefore, when he was meditating to recover the chaotic sacred power, he wasn't worried at all that something unexpected would happen to the blazing sun kingdom without he around. Anyway, it wouldn't be long before he returned. Half a month later, in the supreme domain. In the endless reign of laws, Zhou Zhou, who was emitting a 9-colored divine light, closed his eyes and sat cross-legged in the void, like a sleeping baby. At this moment, he slowly opened his eyes, which were actually emitting a supreme golden light. After a long while, the golden light slowly dissipated and returned to its black pupils when he first arrived in the high continent. However, it was very different from the previous black pupils. At this moment, Zhou Zhou's black pupils looked extremely pure, but they also contained supreme dignity. 1 month. My chaotic sacred power completely recovered on the 9th day. For the rest of the time, I used this nomological reign to comprehend my Lord's nomological laws. This is really a holy land. In just a month, I actually comprehended my nomological skill, king, to the low-tier deity level elementary grade. Zhou Zhou suddenly sighed. As a regal who planned to specialize in the nomological path of a lord, he naturally wouldn't give up on the big and take the small. He would study the endless laws contained in the endless reign of laws. That was what the immortal gods of the Chaos Law did. As the common people's regal who walked the Lord's law, in the past month, he had been working hard to control the nomological reign. He was trying to make the nomological laws that filled the sky be used by he to raise the level of his king's nomological skills as much as possible. It had now been proved that he had made the right choice. This month of slavery had directly raised his extraordinary tier law skill, king, to the low-tier deity level elementary grade. Zhou Zhou gave it a thought and information about the law skill, king, appeared. Law skill name, king, law skill quality, low-level deity tier elementary grade, law skill ability overview. As a low-tier deity level elementary grade lord law skill, you can mark 1% of your subjects and control everything they have, including but not limited to appearance, bloodline, skills, weapons, law skills and even their fate. When you control everything that the marked subject has, the subject doesn't have to suffer any negative effects. 1% of subjects. I have 12 billion subjects under my command, so I'll have the full strength of 120 million subjects. Zhou Zhou chuckled. What does the power of 120 million subjects mean? Even if these subjects were all ordinary people, everything that so many ordinary people had added up was enough to cause an ordinary lord to undergo a qualitative change and directly possess an ability comparable to a god spirit. Needless to say, most of the subjects under Zhou Zhou were extraordinary individuals. It was also because there were so many superhumans added together that he had the combat power of a regular true god tier. Moreover, other than the law skill king, what surprised me the most was that I actually used this law reign to comprehend a second law skill. At the thought of this, Zhou Zhou's smile widened. This was a Lord law skill. It was much harder to comprehend than ordinary law skills. It was like the law skill, king. If not for Bodhi Supreme extracting it from the thousands of Lord Talent crystal fragments, Zhou Zhou might not have been able to touch the shadow of the Lord law skill until now. Following that, he stopped thinking and respectfully said to the sky, "My divine kingdom has been established, and my Lord's laws have improved greatly. Thank you, Lord Supreme Will. I don't dare to stay long. I'll take my leave now." How could Zhou Zhou not dare to stay for long? He couldn't wait to stay here for as long as possible. But firstly, he could not stay away from the blazing sun kingdom for too long. Secondly, he had already gained a lot here. Thirdly, and most importantly, he could sense that this place was beginning to reject him. Clearly, he had already stayed for a long time and had to leave. That was why he had taken the initiative to leave. Go. The voice of the Supreme Will rang out. Zhou Zhou heaved a sigh of relief. After bowing respectfully again, he disappeared from this domain along with the repulsive force of the Supreme Domain. After a long time, a voice that was gender-neutral sounded softly with a hint of worry. When will the Lord of all races appear? Follow current novels on Top Novelfool. Calm. Chapter 907 Crisis of the Blazing Sun Kingdom. True God Tier Scarlet Attack. High continent, in the starry sky. An illusory passageway that emitted the brilliance of thousands of laws appeared from space. Then, a dignified figure in the Emperor Dragon robe that emitted nine-colored divine light walked out. It was none other than Zhou Zhou. The psychedelic passageway behind him also disappeared after he walked out. This is the first time I've come to such a high place. Zhou Zhou looked at the night sky and stars around him, and a smile appeared on his face. He remembered that when he had just grasped the ability to fly, he had once relied on it to fly high in the sky. In the end, not long after they flew, they couldn't withstand the dangers at higher altitudes, including air pressure, low temperature, fog monsters, exotic beasts, and many other factors. They were forced to stop flying and return to their territory. He could rush out of the high continent with the chaos sacred body that had advanced to the god spirit level even if he didn't do anything. He could come to the boundless starry sky outside the high continent and ignore most external dangers. It felt like it was only yesterday when he was fantasizing about becoming a god spirit. I've completely grown into a true expert. Even if I can't be said to be a top-notch expert, I can already be considered invincible among the lords of all races. I can also exchange the top civilizations of the myriad races for one. Zhou Zhou smiled. After knowing that he already had the combat power of a regular true god tier, the civilizations of the myriad races that wanted to deal with him, no matter how unwilling they were, would probably have to reconsider their attitude towards him. He swept his gaze across the cosmos before his gaze landed on a star that emitted nine-colored light. The star was incomparably huge, with a diameter of 90 million kilometers. The diameter of Earth was only 12,000 kilometers, and the diameter of the Sun was only 1.4 million kilometers. This nine-colored star had a diameter of 7,500 times that of Earth and 64 times that of the Sun. From this, it could be seen how huge he was. Is this the projection from my divine kingdom star onto the world? It's alright. It's quite bright and obvious. Zhou Zhou touched his chin, feeling very satisfied. From now on, I will be one of the stars in the world. When living beings in the myriad worlds look up at the starry sky, they will also discover the location of my star. Most importantly, the divine kingdom stars are the same as the God spirits. They are eternal. Not only does it not have a lifespan limit, it will also affect the operation of the laws of the heavens. Wherever the divine kingdom star shines, my concept body will even appear in the myriad worlds. It will create all kinds of legendary tier legends in the myriad worlds and spread my mythical tier stories. To gods who don't believe in the path of God spirits, this is only increasing their reputation in the myriad worlds. However, for a god like me, who has become a god with laws and beliefs, this can greatly increase the number of my believers. It can allow me to quickly accumulate chaotic sacred power and speed up the advancement of a higher level of God spirit. It's just that this process requires a lot of time. Therefore, there is also common sense among the God spirits. The more ancient a God spirit is, as long as they can spread their faith normally over a long period of time, they will often be extremely powerful. Zhou Zhou muttered to himself. Then, he shook his head and smiled, not minding it. He had the blessing of the war god. Until he reached the Master God tier stage, this powerful Lord talent would continue to work. Therefore, he didn't need such a slow advancement method at all. Creating the legendary tier of the myriad worlds through concepts and accumulating the faith of the myriad worlds was actually not necessary for him to advance to a God spirit. He closed his eyes and sensed the projected star of the divine kingdom. Soon, he felt as if he had transformed into a huge star that was spinning in the starry sky. At the same time, he was orbiting the two supreme stars, the lunar star and the solar star, in a unique and profound orbit. Its starlight illuminated the myriad worlds. It could even sense the living beings in the myriad worlds who had faith in him. These living beings who believed in him had a thread of faith between his main body and the projected stars. Through this thread of faith, Zhou Zhou could accept their power of faith and increase the upper limit of his divine power to slowly increase his God spirit realm. As a deity who accepted faith, Zhou Zhou could also sense the state of his believers through this thread of faith and use it to bless them. The higher the level of faith a believer had, the more powerful God spirits he would bless them. Believers at the Holy Spirit level could even use the God descend technique to make him descend on the Holy Spirit in the form of a clone or his main body. From there, the Holy Spirit would have the strength of a God spirit. Then, it could perform miracles, create a sect, and even fight with enemy God spirits to stabilize its faith. However, this method was harmful to the Holy Spirit's body, and the Holy Spirit was the main force that provided faith. Therefore, unless it was absolutely necessary, ordinary God spirits who believed in gods were unwilling to use this divine descent technique. Let me see, how many people in my territory believe in me, and how many subjects are qualified to advance to the Holy Spirit. Zhou Zhou was looking forward to it. However, his expression changed slightly not long after he investigated. This was because he discovered that among his believers, there were a large number of faith threads from the Blazing Sun Kingdom's believers who suddenly lost their vitality and looked ordinary. At the same time, souls flew over from the high continent, wanting to follow the direction of the thread of faith to his divine kingdom and become his subjects. This is, my believers are collectively dead. He pondered for a moment and temporarily rejected these believers from going to the divine kingdom. He also ordered them to temporarily guard their bodies and wait for the small resurrection spell to revive. After the souls of the believers went deep into the divine kingdom, they could follow the God spirits and live forever. However, there was also a huge flaw. That was to lose the ability to grow independently. Unless the believers who ascended to the divine kingdom were injected with the divine power of a God spirit and forcefully increased their strength, it was impossible for them to improve further in their entire lives. They could only stay at the strength stage before they died. This was not what Zhou Zhou wanted to see. Therefore, Zhou Zhou would only allow them to ascend to the divine kingdom and continue to follow him as a pilgrim if they really could not be resurrected. Pilgrim, after death, one would ascend to the divine kingdom and obtain eternal life as a believer. He would have the obligation to protect his god and even participate in the battle of gods. Zhou Zhou knew that his subjects could be resurrected, so even though he knew that the Blazing Sun Kingdom was in danger, he wasn't in a hurry. Instead, he chose a soul that was preparing to return to the Blazing Sun Kingdom and communicated with it with his divine sense. Zhao De, what happened in the Blazing Sun Kingdom? How long has it been since I left the Blazing Sun Kingdom? Zhou Zhou asked this devout believer named Zhao De, Your Majesty. When Zhao Da's soul heard Zhou Zhou's voice, he immediately became excited. He knelt on the ground and said respectfully and angrily, You have only left for less than an hour. Not long after you left, 3 scarlet true god-tier god spirits suddenly descended outside our kingdom with more than 100 god spirits. Our soldiers of the Blazing Sun Kingdom, the soldiers of the other armies, and the worshipped god spirits immediately counterattacked after discovering these invaders. However, even though the number of enemies is not many, all of them are powerful god spirits. It's difficult for the army's group attack to be effective against them. Moreover, the number of our god spirits is far inferior to theirs. In addition, not all of our god spirits have attacked. This makes it difficult for us to injure them when facing more than 100 scarlet god spirits. At this point, Zhao Da's face was filled with shame. Follow current novels on Top Novelfool. Com. Chapter 908 You're really bold. In addition to more than 10 billion soldiers and nearly 20 god spirits, there was actually no good solution for facing more than 100 enemies. To the soldiers and god spirits of the Blazing Sun Kingdom who had always won battles, this was simply a huge humiliation. Even if the other party was a god spirit, he shouldn't have lost so miserably. Zhou Zhou didn't think much of it. In the previous battle that involved more than 100 hostile god spirits, Zhou Zhou had borrowed nearly 70 immortals from the human race to have the capital to win that war. Now that the reinforcements had already left, only the soldiers and god spirits of the Blazing Sun Kingdom were left. Under such circumstances, it was already very good that they had dragged on until now. As for why not all the immortals on their side were mobilized, it was naturally to protect he and wait for him to return from the supreme domain. At the same time, Zhou Zhou also thought of a problem. In such an incident involving a true god tier leading a team to attack the capital, the former Zenith Heaven Cave Observation Array was already very useless. The Zenith Heaven Cave Observation Array could only detect the fate aura of enemies invading the territory after all. Even though this method was not bad, it could only sense it and not defend against it. If an enemy who was good at spatial teleportation led a large army and directly teleported to the capital city to execute a decapitation operation, then no matter how fast the Zenith Heaven Cave Observation Array was, it would be useless. For example, the current situation. Even though he hadn't caused much damage yet, his army had indeed been caught off guard. He had to add an automatic defense function outside the Zenith Heaven Cave Observation Array. This way, the safety of the kingdom would be guaranteed with the combination of reconnaissance and automatic defense measures. Even if the enemy launched another surprise attack, it would at least give his soldiers and god spirit some room to react. As Zhou Zhou pondered, he asked Xiao De frowny face, are those 3 true god tiers and the 100-odd scarlet god spirits from the empire-level scarlet lords that we defeated? That's right. That's what Legion Commander Wu said too. Legion Commander Wu also said that they are here for revenge. As long as we hold on until your majesty returns, all danger will be resolved. Zhao De said. I got it. Zhou Zhou nodded. You've worked hard. Go back to your body first. Be careful not to miss the resurrection time. I will deal with these scarlet god spirits who are true god tiers but have come to launch a sneak attack. Zhou Zhou said. Since his danger prediction and talent intuition didn't give him any premonition of danger, he would go and deal with these enemies. Yes, your majesty. Zhao De agreed without hesitation. When he heard his majesty's voice, He knew that the Blazing Sun Kingdom would definitely win this sudden war. This was the confidence that their majesty gave them. Seeing Zhao De follow the thread of faith and return to the Blazing Sun Kingdom, Zhou Zhou didn't hesitate. He directly activated the low-tier deity-level elementary grade king and let more than 120 million subjects bless him. In an instant, Zhou Zhou's aura began to increase at a terrifying speed. In the blink of an eye, he was infinitely close to the level of a true god tier. At this stage, she had stopped Zhou Zhou for a long time. But now, with a thought from Zhou Zhou, with the augmentation of everything the billions of subjects possessed, he directly broke through this bottleneck and reached the level of a true god-tier elementary grade. Crack! A blade light that seemed to be able to destroy the world flashed across the starry sky. Zhou Zhou pulled out the universe-destroying blade from his waist. This is my first battle since becoming a god. I'll use these 3 scarlet true god-tier god spirits to sharpen my blade. Zhou Zhou looked at the saber that appeared like the destruction of the universe and muttered. Then, his divine body instantly disappeared from the spot. After 3 teleportations, Zhou Zhou arrived above the Blazing Sun Kingdom. As soon as he arrived, Zhou Zhou witnessed the scene of more than 100 scarlet god spirits wantonly killing the Blazing Sun Kingdom soldiers in the chaotic army. About 70 Scarlet God Spirits were stopped by the 18 Scarlet God Spirits, 20 Sura Swordsman Army Spirits, and 10 Weapon God Army Spirits. As for the remaining 30-odd Scarlet God Spirits, they kept attacking the Blazing Sun Kingdom. However, under the fearless defense of the soldiers, no matter how many powerful and treacherous methods these Scarlet God Spirits used and how many soldiers they killed, they were unable to take a step into the Blazing Sun Kingdom. These soldiers were using their lives to stop these god spirits. Zhou Zhou was moved. However, his heart had become colder and angrier precisely because of this. He looked around and quickly noticed a small world hidden in the interlayer of space. In that small world, a scarlet palace stood tall. 3 scarlet true god tiers were among them. 2 of the scarlet true god tiers were wearing taboo robes. At a glance, they could put life forms in danger of being contaminated. They were the scarlet true god tiers of the forbidden archmage lineage. The other had the face of a black goat and exuded a depraved aura. It was a devil lord from hell. All 3 of them had the strength of a true god tier elementary grade. They were afraid of the supreme agreement and did not dare to attack in the high continent, so they hid in this small space and watched the battle below to prevent any accidents. Zhou Zhou sneered. There was no need to think too much about it. These fellows must have seen the phenomenon of him becoming a god. They, who had already suffered at his hands, had specially come to cause trouble. They probably wanted to interrupt his process of becoming a god. Boom! He did not hesitate to emit his god spirit aura, maximizing his presence. The 3 scarlet true god tiers had indeed noticed his existence. Their eyes immediately lit up, and then they were shocked and bewildered. Wasn't this kid not even a god spirit previously? How did he become a true god tier god spirit now? They looked at each other and attacked together, shooting 3 beams of forceful light at Zhou Zhou. Zhou Zhou saw through the 3 forceful guiding lights at a glance and did not resist. Instead, he allowed the other party to pull him into the other party's world. Looks like he only used some forbidden secret technique to temporarily advance to the true god tier level. A taboo Dharma god sneered at Zhou Zhou. You can't even resist the forceful guiding light. To think that we thought you were a great enemy. After killing him, I will bring his corpse to my lord. The other forbidden archmage said calmly. Then I want his soul. The devil lord licked his lips and looked at Zhou Zhou greedily. Just the 3 of you? Zhou Zhou, who was restrained by the forceful guiding light, suddenly spoke. What? The devil lord was stunned. Nothing. Zhou Zhou's divine body shook and dissipated the forceful guiding light on his body. Then, he swung his saber and slashed out 3 saber beams that were tens of millions of kilometers long. He cut the Devil Lord into several irregular parts and looked at the other 2 forbidden archmages. I just think that you guys are really bold. Follow current novels on Top Novelfool. Com. Chapter 909 Lord's Law Skill, Uniting All Techniques, Controlling the Stars. 1. The 2 forbidden archmages, who were wearing taboo cloaks, looked at the Devil Lord that had been cut into several parts with chills all over their bodies. They looked at Zhou Zhou with trembling hearts. How could this human be so terrifying? That was a genuine true God-tier elementary grade expert. In the myriad worlds, one could control the law origin of a middle world and address countless life forms as Tao ancestors. He was actually killed by him with a single slash. The Devil Lord was still wailing. He tried his best to recover his divine body, but he was shocked to discover that there was a strange dark red law power attached to the edge of his cut-open divine body. This dark red law power not only prevented his divine body from connecting and recovering together, but it was also constantly destroying his divine body. It was as if he would not stop until his divine body was completely devoured. This is the law of extermination. The Devil Lord was shocked. Law of extermination, heavenly destruction and earthly destruction. This was an extremely famous branch of the law of destruction. As a veteran true God tier who had become a god for a long time, he naturally knew the name of this law. However, he never expected that he would become its victim. A true God tier who walked the path of law of extermination. Even among the true God tier, this was an existence that was enough to make one tremble in fear. Could this king of the blazing sun be the reincarnation of some master God tier mighty figure? Otherwise, how could he have reached such a ridiculous level in such a short period of time? Quickly kill him. This king of the blazing sun walks the law of extermination. As long as he doesn't die, the power of destruction won't be extinguished. If I die, you won't be able to escape either. The Devil Lord endured the pain and roared at the 2 forbidden archmages. At the same time, he used his divine power to resist the corrosion of the law of extermination while enduring his heavy injuries. He formed seals with his hands and cast a mystic technique. Immediately after, his body suddenly turned blood red. Following that, the incomplete body parts were forcefully temporarily connected to his divine body, allowing his body to temporarily recover. Then, this Devil Lord took out a blood-colored flag from his king's treasure vault. From its aura, it was a top-notch high-tier deity-level divine artifact. The 2 forbidden archmages looked at each other. They knew that their temporary companion could not hold on for long, so without hesitation, they took out a black and beating heart from their chests. Then, they chanted an incantation and saw their hearts rise strangely and fly into the sky. The 2 forbidden archmages chanted strange incantations below. As for these 2 hearts, they began to accumulate terrifying forbidden law power and prepare for a fatal strike. Zhou Zhou raised his eyebrows. He wanted to accumulate energy to unleash his ultimate move. Without hesitation, he swung the universe-destroying blade at the 2 forbidden archmages and slashed out 2 chaotic blade chi. Battle formation rule, blade rule, flame rule, ice blood rule, winter rule, dragon rule, sharp rule, spatial rule. Under the control of the Lord's laws, thousands of laws were attached to it. Coupled with the enhancement of this true God-tier advanced-grade divine artifact's law of extermination. This chaotic blade chi, which was originally created by him, had a terrifying power comparable to an intermediate true God tier. In an instant, the 2 chaotic blade chi turned into 2 colorful streams of light that swept past the bodies of the 2 forbidden archmages. The powerful chaotic blade chi directly obliterated the divine bodies and souls of the 2 forbidden archmages, almost killing them. However, Zhou Zhou did not look happy. He looked up at the 2 black hearts. After the two forbidden archmages died, not only did the two black hearts not stop accumulating strength, but they also seemed to have eaten some great tonic. They suddenly strengthened a lot and began to emit an even more terrifying aura. Zhou Zhou narrowed his eyes slightly. Were these two forbidden archmages planning to sacrifice themselves to these two strange hearts to increase their power? No wonder he did not see them setting up any defense around him. It turned out that they had already planned it. At this moment, the two hearts flew towards him with the terrifying power of the forbidden laws. Just as Zhou Zhou was about to dodge, he saw the Devil Lord not far away roar angrily and wave the blood-colored flag in his hand. Myriad Demon Soul Devourer. In Zhou Zhou's soul consciousness, he emitted a faint white light and was sitting cross-legged in the void of his sea of consciousness with his eyes closed. Crack, crack, crack. Devils with two horns on their foreheads and ferocious expressions, exuding monstrous evil auras, tore through the void from their sea of consciousness and rushed to bite Zhou Zhou. There were more than 10,000 of them. Moreover, there was no lack of lesser gods, mid-tier deity levels, and even high-tier deity-level demons. At this critical moment, Zhou Zhou's eyelids twitched. The next second, the entire sea of consciousness shone brightly with willpower. There was no lack of God spirit-level devils. They did not even have time to scream before they disappeared into the void of the sea of consciousness. After doing this, Zhou Zhou continued to sit cross-legged in the sea of consciousness with his eyes closed. It was as if nothing had happened. In reality, after the Devil Lord used the myriad demon flag to command thousands of devils to devour Zhou Zhou's soul, he put down his hand confidently. He looked at Zhou Zhou in the distance and a sinister smile appeared on his face. In the myriad demon flag, he had painstakingly spent more than 30,000 years to capture more than 12,000 high-level demons. Among the tens of thousands of demons, from legendary tier demons to high-tier deity-level advanced grade demons, none of them were weak. Devils were good at toying, controlling, and damaging souls. Coupled with the unique ability of the myriad demon flag, they could directly pass through the enemy's external defense and open a passageway in the enemy's soul sea to attack their weakest soul or soul. The two of them opened the door first before releasing the dog. With a series of smooth and small moves, as long as the other party didn't have a true god-level soul defense divine artifact, he could even kill two true god-tier enemies. This was his greatest trump card. He's just a lord of a myriad race that has temporarily advanced to the true god-tier level with an extraordinary secret technique. I don't believe that you even have soul defense true god-tier divine artifacts. Even if your luck is heaven-defying and you can guarantee that you won't die under this move of mine, the attacks of the two forbidden archmages will still follow. I want to see how you can dodge them. The Devil Lord thought to himself. When he used the myriad demon soul devourer, he had the intention of killing the other party, but the most important thing was to assist the two forbidden archmages in successfully attacking. This was to prevent the Lord of the Blazing Sun from using any tricks to dodge the attacks of the two forbidden archmages. But in the next second, the Devil Lord's eyes widened as if it had seen something incredible. Right on the heels of that, his eyes, ears, nostrils, and other holes shot out beams of pure white light. The Devil Lord's body stiffened. Then, as if it had lost its strength, it lay in the void, lifeless. Chapter 9 10 Lord's Law Skill, Uniting All Techniques, Controlling the Stars. 2. Zhou Zhou looked at the two black hearts flying towards him. Amidst the majestic taboo laws, he could vaguely see the shadows of the two forbidden archmages. They looked at Zhou Zhou with a sinister smile, as if they had already seen the dawn of victory. I see. First, you'll sacrifice yourselves. Then, after killing me, you'll use the nutrients from my corpse to be reborn. Not only did these two hearts accumulate all the powers of these two forbidden archmages, they also contain the energy of the two chaotic blade chi that I just released. Once they explode, it will be earth-shattering. Zhou Zhou was not afraid of this scene. Instead, he commented calmly. Then, he smiled. Just as well. I'll show you my newly comprehended Lord Law skill in the Supreme Domain's nomological reign. Lord's Law skill, uniting all laws, controlling the stars. He thought to himself. Then, he softly chanted the name of this law skill. He suddenly raised his right hand and struck out with his palm, aiming at the two forbidden archmage hearts that were flying towards him. In the next second, the palm phantom, he pushed out and quickly expanded to 30 to 40 million kilometers in size. At this moment, his palm seemed to have transformed into a vast starry sky, with endless stars hanging high in it. Furthermore, those were not ordinary celestial bodies and stars. They were actually divine kingdom stars. Every divine kingdom star represented a nomological law, so this starry sky was shockingly filled with endless laws. If God's spirits saw this scene, they might even recognize this place as the origin of laws. Otherwise, which God's spirit in the world could comprehend all the endless laws on this palm? Speaking of which, after Zhou Zhou released his palm, it quickly collided with the two black hearts that were filled with strange taboo laws. Buzz. There was a buzzing sound, and then the world strangely fell silent. Right on the heels of that, the two sides that collided suddenly split into two, breaking into two completely different scenes. On the left was the vast starry sky filled with divine kingdom stars. On the right was the figure of a forbidden source that was illuminated by the scarlet sun. It was wearing a dark cloak and its face could not be seen clearly. The two sides wrestled with each other, not giving in to each other. However, both sides controlled this power perfectly and did not shatter this temporary small world. But soon, the palm that controlled the stars was quickly devouring the power of the forbidden laws in the two black hearts, causing the power aura of the two black hearts to decrease rapidly. Meanwhile, the strength of his palm was rapidly increasing. Thick spatial power erupted, forming a spatial passageway with endless suction behind it, directly sucking it into the spatial rift. The remaining flesh and blood consciousness of the forbidden archmages in the two pitch-black hearts immediately panicked. They still wanted to use this move of mutual destruction to kill Zhou Zhou and use the nutrients in Zhou Zhou's divine body to be reborn. They might even have a chance to advance further with the world-famous peerless talent body of the Lord of the Blazing Sun. Who would have thought that the two forbidden law attacks that they had jointly created that were comparable to true god-tier intermediate grade attacks were actually unable to do anything to each other? This was a low-tier deity-level elementary grade god spirit that had just become a god spirit. They roared in despair. However, no matter how angry they were, it could not change their ending. When this earth-shattering palm completely absorbed the taboo laws and energy in the two pitch-black hearts, the remaining flesh and blood consciousness of the two forbidden archmage completely disappeared from the high continent. Zhou Zhou retracted his right palm and saw that the 3,000-kilometer-tall starry palm had also become transparent before disappearing. He looked at his right palm and revealed a smile. My law skill, uniting all techniques, controlling the stars. After absorbing the taboo laws of these two forbidden archmages, it actually strengthened a little. What a pleasant surprise. Zhou Zhou was satisfied. His newly comprehended Lord Law skill did not disappoint. Be it offense, defense, or absorbing laws to increase one's growth, they were all top-notch. It was not in vain that he had comprehended the Lord's laws for so long in the supreme domain despite the reign of laws. Furthermore, his palm could not only absorb the enemy's nomological attacks to strengthen his body and perfect the divine kingdom star in his palm. Furthermore, as more and more subjects comprehended laws in his territory, his nomological comprehension would naturally fuse into his palm, making his second Lord Law skill stronger and stronger. Its domineeringness and growth were not inferior to his number one Lord's Law skill, King. The King is used to increase my strength. Unify all techniques and control the stars to supplement my combat methods. With an escape-type Lord Law skill, my Lord God Spirit's combat system will be simple to build. In addition, the name uniting all methods and controlling the stars is a little too long. Let's call it the Myriad Method Star Palm, or the Myriad Countries Shocking Palm. As Zhou Zhou pondered about his future development direction, he waved his right hand. He saw the two black hearts that had lost their laws and energy being collected by him. Then, he waved his hand again, and the corpse of the Devil Lord was also collected by him. Fortunately, I have two hearts. I can barely extract the loots. As for this Devil Lord, even if you want to die, you won't do it this way. Zhou Zhou shook his head and began to extract the corpse. Each of these 3 true God-tier elementary grade Scarlet God Spirits had 3 to 4 high-tier deity-level divine artifacts and more than 10 mid-tier deity-level divine artifacts on their bodies. Other than that, there were also more than 30 high-tier deity-level materials and more than 1,000 mid-tier deity-level and God Spirit materials. Other than high-tier deity-level divine artifacts and materials that could be extracted and turned into true God divine artifacts and true God-tier materials that were worth looking at, Zhou Zhou frowned as he looked at the other items. So poor. To think that you guys are true God-tier God spirits. After Zhou Zhou extracted them, he directly stored the 33 true God-tier divine artifacts and 96 true God-tier materials into the king's treasure box. As for the other divine artifacts, Zhou Zhou planned to directly throw them into the military merit exchange system and let the immortals under him earn military merits to exchange for them. Now that he had many immortal god subordinates, he had also prepared something suitable for them to exchange. Then, he took a look at the battered small world and didn't mind. He turned around and left. To the current Zhou Zhou, such a small world could be casually created by him. Furthermore, he could create it quite perfectly. He could even give birth to racial life forms. He was a god spirit formed by the Lord's laws after all. In terms of controlling the endless laws, even if he wasn't as meticulous as the laws of chaos, it wasn't a problem for him to do it. If it really didn't work out, he could nurture a subordinate of a chaotic law god spirit in the future. Then, he could control the other party. That way, he would know what the chaotic law God Spirit knew. As for whether he understood it or not, it was not important as long as he knew how to use it. In reality, above the blazing sun kingdom, Zhou Zhou controlled the spatial laws and instantly transmitted to the sky above the blazing sun kingdom. He looked at the scarlet god spirits who were still fighting with the blazing sun kingdom's god spirits and didn't waste any time. He raised his right hand and used his true god-tier dermic powers to activate the Lord's Law skill, Myriad Method Star Palm, and control the spatial law skill, Spatial Sealing, the profundity of the word seal. Freeze. As soon as he finished speaking, these hundreds of scarlet god spirits were all sealed in place and did not move. Their eyes were filled with shock, but they could not move at all. How could a group of scarlet god spirits at the highest high-tier deity level resist a true god-tier existence on the Lord's Law path? No matter how many there were, they were just ants. Capture them all. Those who surrender will stay, and those who don't will be killed. After you're done, come back and see me. Zhou Zhou left a sentence and returned to the blazing sun kingdom alone. Chapter 911 Ranking Overtaken. The mission that Zhou Zhou gave. Zhou Zhou had just returned to the blazing sun kingdom when he sensed a familiar aura. It was not far from the original small blessed land and was currently resting. It was the first-generation blood fire arrow elf, Nadia. Zhou Zhou was stunned. He subconsciously calculated in his heart and then reacted. It was actually the 11th day of the King of 10,000 Kings event. When he accepted the faction quests of the Elven Empire, Elizariel said that the divine battlefield would take at least 10 days to absorb enough life force and death energy for the entrance to open up. Now, it seemed that Elizariel must have sent Nadia to look for him after the divine battlefield opened. Zhou Zhou smacked his lips. He still remembered that the faction quests of the Elven Empire was to let he lead his troops into the divine battlefield and obtain a fragment of a true god-tier intermediate-grade divine artifact called Spirit Nurturing Stone Seed. A true god-tier intermediate-grade divine artifact was just a fragment. To him, who had 77 true god-tier artifacts, this was really uninteresting. Thinking of the faction quests, Zhou habitually opened the Lord Faction Points ranking. First place, Original Spirit Race, True Lord, 2,010,000,000 faction points. Second place, Human Lord of the Blazing Sun, 1,899,000,000 faction points. Third place, Shepherd's God Race, Heaven Chasing Lord, 1,460,000,000 faction points. Fourth place, Chaos Gods Race, Great One Lord, 1,360,000,000 faction points. Fifth place, Myriad Spirit, Spiritual Venerable Lord, 860,000,000 faction points. As expected, they've caught up. Zhou was not surprised to see that he was overtaken by the True Lord. The other party had combined the strength of the entire race and even the people of foreign races to collect faction points after all. As for himself, he was still alone and had yet to accept the help of the human race. The name list of the Eye of the Heavens Anger was still under investigation and had not been officially processed. Under such circumstances, even if he had the combat power of a regular true god tier, he could not create faction points out of thin air. Under such circumstances, it was certain that he would be surpassed. Fortunately, the gap was not big. There were still nearly 20 days left. He should be able to catch up easily. Your Majesty. At this moment, excited voices came from afar. Zhou turned around and saw at least 100 people flying towards him. Bai Yun, Qi Xiantian, Feng Luo, Luo Sheng, Zhao Changshou, Zheng Yuanqi, Mu Gu, Carol Moali. God spirits, upper echelons of the territory, army generals, heroes. They were all among them. After they arrived in front of Zhou, they looked at Zhou, who was emitting endless divine might and looked even more dignified and unfathomable. They immediately knelt on one knee excitedly. Congratulations on becoming a god spirit, Your Majesty. Congratulations on becoming a god spirit, Your Majesty. Congratulations on becoming a god spirit, Your Majesty. The subordinate said respectfully and excitedly. At this moment, Bai Yun, one of her subordinates, said in shame, Your Majesty, during the period when you established the divine kingdom, I was at a disadvantage in defending the country. I allowed these scarlet god spirits to invade the territory of the kingdom and kill wantonly in our army. Your Majesty, please punish me. Your Majesty, these scarlet god spirits launched a sneak attack first, and they are powerful and numerous. Even though they caused many casualties to our army, it's not the fault of Legion Commander Bai alone. I have also protected them and suffered disadvantages. Am willing to accept punishment. Vicky stood up and said. I was unable to discover the traces of the arrival of these scarlet god spirits before they descended. As a result, I only reacted when they barged into the kingdom and began to wreak havoc and slaughter. Am muddle-headed and incompetent. Please punish me, Your Majesty. Wu Xian was also ashamed. The other god spirits, soldiers, and upper echelons of the territory also voiced their mistakes and asked Zhou to punish them. After this incident, they realized that their power was actually so laughable in front of powerful external enemies without His Majesty around. The enemy could actually come and go as they pleased. In fact, the immortal god team of the Blazing Sun Kingdom could not be said to be weak. There were already 18 god spirits, and there was no lack of high-tier deity level or immortal gods with combat power comparable to high-tier deity level after all. The reserves of the deities of some weak empire-level lord factions were only so. However, in front of enemies at the true god-tier level and a large number of enemy god spirits, it was still somewhat insufficient. Only when His Majesty, a powerful lord with true god-tier combat power, was around could they truly ensure the safety of their territory and subjects. However, as His Majesty's subjects, they actually needed the protection of their lord. This made them feel rather humiliated and ashamed. Zhou Zhou felt a little helpless when he saw this scene. To be honest, the battle just now was indeed the most thrilling battle in the history of the Blazing Sun Kingdom. If he did not return, the 3 true God tiers and the 100 scarlet God spirits might really cause great trouble for the Blazing Sun Kingdom. However, firstly, the other party was led by a true God tier. With more than 100 scarlet God spirits launching a sneak attack, even if the scarlet true God tier did not attack and only acted as a deterrent, there was still a gap in strength. It was normal that he could not defeat them. Secondly, the Blazing Sun Kingdom had only been established for a short period of time. Although its development was extremely fast, it was precisely because of this that the kingdom had huge flaws that needed to be made up for. It was understandable that he could not discover the other party's attack. Therefore, Zhou Zhou had no intention of blaming everyone. However, he still had to warn them. He thought for a moment and said calmly, "Even though this battle was not won smoothly, I know that it's not your fault. It's just that we developed too quickly, causing some things to not catch up. But it does reveal some problems. The main problem is that even though we have a 10 billion strong army, this 10 billion strong army will only have a numerical advantage against enemies below the legendary tier. However, there's nothing I can do against a God Spirit level enemy. The individual strength of a God Spirit is far from what a soldier of a God Spirit can compare to. To the God Spirits, it will be very simple for them to take the head of an enemy general from an army of 10,000. No matter how many ordinary soldiers there are, they can't threaten them. They will cause a little trouble for them at the very most. In the face of such a predicament, we mainly rely on 2 methods. First, increase the number of God-tier powerhouses we have. However, this kind of thing can only be done slowly. We can't force it. Second, enhance the way ordinary soldiers deal with God spirits, so that ordinary soldiers can also deal with God spirits. As for this method, the most important thing now is to rely on military formations. Bai Yun, Wu Xian, Feng Luo, Jiang Kai, Qian Xiaoxuan, Zheng Wanjun, Zhou Zhou began to call out names. The generals he called out were all talents who controlled the small God Sura Myriad Spirit Army formation and the Weapon God Army formation. After they stood up one by one, Zhou Zhou said, "From today onwards, all of you have to do your best to nurture generals who have mastered these 2 God Spirit level military formations. Try to get our Blazing Sun Kingdom to have 100 generals who have mastered God Spirit level military formations as soon as possible. This way, if we encounter the situation just now again, we will at least be able to deal with it to a certain extent. And as long as you can nurture such a God Spirit level military formation talent, the Blazing Sun Kingdom will also reward you with enough surprises. They won't let your hard work go to waste." "Yes, Your Majesty," the generals said respectfully. They had all gone through this before, so they were not unfamiliar with this process and had some confidence in their hearts. Chapter 9:12 Holy Spirit, by Yun. Abyssal Holy Dragon, Nazario. Zhou Zhou nodded. Then, with a wave of his right hand, a 9-colored spatial teleportation passageway appeared where the small blessed land was originally. The original small blessed land has already become the foundation of my divine kingdom. If you want to see me in the future, come to the main hall of the divine kingdom through this divine kingdom passageway to see me. This king will mainly cultivate in the divine kingdom in the future. In addition, I will also place the reincarnation sacred palace in my divine kingdom. If you want to continue improving yourself through the time world of the reincarnation sacred palace, you can directly come to my divine kingdom. The laws of my divine kingdom and even higher laws can accommodate all of you. Cultivating in my divine kingdom is beneficial and harmless to you." Zhou Zhou said. Other god spirits would not reveal the location of their divine kingdoms because divine kingdoms were the foundation of a god spirit and also the guarantee of advancing to a higher level in the future. Once the divine kingdom was exposed and the enemy knew about it, once the enemy launched a sneak attack and destroyed the divine kingdom, even if this god spirit did not die, his strength would drop drastically and there would be no hope of breaking through. But Zhou Zhou was different. Firstly, his divine kingdom was a perfect divine kingdom that had been blessed by the supreme will. It was very difficult for external enemies to cause harm to his divine kingdom. Secondly, only his subjects were allowed to enter the divine kingdom to cultivate. Furthermore, the weakest subjects were all dead loyal. No, it should be his fanatic believer. This was because after the lords of the deadly loyal citizens became god spirits, these deadly loyal citizens would naturally become fanatic believers. Zhou Zhou looked at the people in front of him. He could sense it. The people in front of him were all his fanatic believers. This included Heras, Zhe Wu, and even Yuan Song, who had just joined the territory recently. Yuan Song was fine. Because he was his mythical reputation rating talent, he had extremely high basic loyalty. Coupled with the terrifying enhancement of the peaceful times, it was not surprising for him to be promoted to a dead loyal citizen. Heras and Zhe Wu surprised Zhou Zhou. Even though these two god spirits had joined the Blazing Sun Kingdom for quite some time, Zhou Zhou knew that these two gods were proud and arrogant people. They would not easily offer their allegiance to their lord. He did not expect that he would be completely convinced by the other party. Other than feeling a little surprised, Zhou Zhou did not think too much about it. He looked at the faith threads of these fanatic believers and realized that their faith threads were clearly much thicker and brighter than the faith threads of other low-level believers. This meant that his faith was very large and pure. Furthermore, he could provide Zhou Zhou with a large amount of pure power of faith at all times, strengthening Zhou Zhou's foundation and allowing he to advance to a higher god spirit realm faster. At the same time, such a thick and bright line of faith also meant that Zhou Zhou could bestow blessings on their stronger gods. They could even borrow a portion of the power of their Lord's Law skill. Zhou Zhou nodded slightly. This was the advantage of having a high level of faith. Then, he swept his gaze across the crowd and finally landed on a person. Nadia was stunned. She turned around and saw a valiant female general standing beside her. I didn't expect the first person to become a Holy Spirit tier believer to be Bai Yun. Zhou Zhou sighed inwardly. The Holy Spirit's loyalty has been further sublimated as a fanatic believer. At the same time, it has comprehended the power of believing in the God Spirit and obtained the blessing of the God Spirit. That's why it became a Holy Spirit. Faith, talent, potential, and luck were all indispensable. Zhou Zhou was surprised that Bai Yun could become a Holy Spirit tier believer. Wait. If Bai Yun could become his Holy Spirit tier believer, could it be that he had also stepped into the threshold of the Lord's Law? When Zhou Zhou thought of this, he immediately used Bai Yun's thread of faith to enter his divine body and check his nomological path. If the line of faith of a fanatic believer was about the thickness of a hemp rope, then, the Holy Spirit tier line of faith was as thick as a bucket. After Zhou Zhou's will entered it, it was very smooth. He even felt that he could use the God Descend technique to descend his entire divine body into Bai Yun's divine body and control his divine body to do what he wanted. He did not carefully ponder over this feeling. Anyway, he had plenty of time in the future, so he first focused his attention on Bai Yun's divine spark. Then, Zhou Zhou raised his eyebrows and came to a realization. I see. It's the battle formation rule. I can't believe it can be done like this. The battle formation rule is indeed very similar to my Lord rule. It has the charm of ruling. If Bai Yun comprehends this battle formation rule and becomes a god, she can indeed rely on this similarity to become my Holy Spirit tier believer. Through Bai Yun's incident, Zhou thought of more things. If one could become a Holy Spirit tier believer of his, by relying on the charm of ruling the laws, in that case, many laws actually had the charm of ruling. For example, the law of chaos controlled the origin of all techniques. The laws of water and fire controlled the water and fire of the heavens. The laws of the sword Tao. One sword produced all techniques, and one sword destroyed all techniques. The laws of the dragon surpassed mediocrity. If one pursued the pinnacle of the world, they would become a dragon. Law of life, the mother of all creations, law of death, the final destination of all living beings. Zhou had experienced the reign of laws in the supreme domain, so he knew very well that any law in this world, when developed to the extreme, would be related to ruling. In other words, only by completely controlling everything within the nomological laws could one walk this nomological law to the extreme. Zhou immediately understood. Thousands of laws had the possibility of becoming lords. And the comprehension of thousands of laws could become his Holy Spirit tier believer. This was the Lord's rule. It was inclusive and omnipotent. It was shaped like the law of chaos, but it was higher than the law of chaos. Zhou instantly thought of many things. He even felt that he had already touched the threshold of becoming a low-tier deity-level intermediate-grade God spirit. Zhou, who felt that he had gained something, withdrew his consciousness from Bai Yun's divine body. Only Bai Yun, whose face was slightly hot, was left standing rooted to the ground, not knowing what to do. At this moment, roar! A dragon roar that seemed to come from the depths of the abyss sounded. Then, in the sky not far away, two purple dragon pupils the size of stars slowly appeared. Immediately after, there were his dragon eyes, dragon body, dragon claws, dragon tail. After, he completely appeared. Only then did the gods realize that it was a terrifying dragon that was tens of millions of kilometers tall. He had 9 thick black dragon horns that were arranged in a ring. From afar, it looked like a dragon crown that resembled a black mountain range. A pair of dark purple dragon eyes seemed to be able to see through the heavens. Its entire body was as black as ink, and there was a row of ferocious sharp backstabs on its back. Its entire body was burning with dark purple abyssal holy flames, as if it was burning with the evil of the world. Layers of abyssal phantoms appeared around him, illuminating the endless abyss. It was intimidating. Just as others were feeling bewildered. The terrifying dragon god slowly lowered its head and bowed in Zhou's direction. A respectful voice resounded throughout the universe, "Master, I've already become the juggernaut of the abyss and advanced to the legendary tier dragon race. My new name now is, Abyssal Holy Dragon, Nazario." Chapter 913 Juggernaut of the Abyss, Nazario's Interface. Imperial Dragon. Nazario, it's actually him, this aura is so terrifying. What kind of good fortune did His Majesty give him? He actually advanced to the legendary tier dragon race. TSK. That's an existence even more noble than the dragon god. Even if he hasn't grown up, he can be called the supreme elder of the dragon race in advance. After he grows up, he will be a peak expert in the myriad worlds. I remember the old soldiers saying that when His Majesty was still weak, it was Nazario who protected His Majesty through the most dangerous period. Now that Nazario has the current fortune, it can be seen that His Majesty is still nostalgic. Of course His Majesty has a sense of nostalgia. Otherwise, old ministers like you and I would have been eliminated by the newcomers long ago. How could we still be qualified to stand here? Our Blazing Sun Kingdom has another expert. Congratulations. The current me might not be able to defeat him. Qi Xiantian looked at Nazario, who was tens of millions of kilometers tall and looked like a giant dragon in the sky. His expression was solemn but filled with fighting spirit. His sword Dao should improve by another major stage. This way, he should be able to challenge this newly advanced legendary tier dragon. The original spirit race's Yuan Song frowned slightly at Nazario. He actually advanced to the legendary tier dragon race. The outcome of the battle between me and him should be around 28%. There's a 20% chance that I can win at the cost of being seriously injured and dying, but most of the time, I shouldn't be able to defeat him. He sighed in his heart thinking of this. Legendary tier dragons were very special. They had even surpassed the concept of bloodline life forms. Instead, they should be called law incarnations and children of the universe. They were unique special life forms in the world that even the original spirit race could not compare to. The original spirit race could at least reproduce and was still within the concept of life forms after all. However, legendary dragons could not reproduce because they could only be born from heaven and earth. It was also because the legendary tier dragon race was unique that the previous legendary tier dragon race died. That was why the next legendary tier dragon race appeared. Therefore, they could not form a race. Otherwise, the number one race in the world would not be the original spirit race, but the legendary tier dragon race. Wuxia, who was at the side, felt his restless dragon-slaying will and looked at Nazario strangely. Weird. My dragon-slaying will actually feels like I can't use my full strength against this guy. Isn't this guy's bloodline just powerful? He mumbled. Even though he was unwilling to admit it, he felt that he did not have a complete chance of winning against Nazario. At the same time, Zhou looked at Nazario and seemed to sense something. A smile appeared on his face. Nazario, it's actually my second Holy Spirit tier believer. He felt gratified and opened Nazario's interface. Pet, Nazario, race, legendary dragon, abyssal holy dragon, divine name, juggernaut of the abyss, divine duty, abyss, dragon, evil, fire, chaos, growing stage, youth stage, strength level, low tier deity level elementary grade, skills, abyssal dragon breath, abyssal dragon might, law god body, abyssal, evil, fire, law skill, abyssal holy fire, law skill, source of chaos, law skill, source of evil, law skill, abyssal evil canon, law skill, ruler armor, law skill, ruler sacred crown, rule skill. Abyssal gate, abyssal shock, abyssal fury, summon demon dragon, abyssal plane creation law, draconic magic mastery, abyssal magic mastery, evil magic mastery, fire magic mastery, master god tier elemental immunity, awakening level 50%, master god tier physical immunity, awakening level 50%, master god tier soul immunity, awakening level 50%, abyssal will condensation technique, potential, master god tier advanced grade, world limit, faith points, Holy Spirit, personality, faith, loyalty. Calm, domineering, indifferent, cold-blooded, combat fanatic, playing evil, pet description, a legendary dragon among pure-blooded dragons, the future ruler of the abyss, a unique existence in the myriad worlds. It holds the ultimate power of the abyss and the power of evil. It is one of the representatives of the abyss will in the myriad worlds. After reading it, the smile on Zhou's face widened. Such a panel was no longer inferior to the light sacred dragon, Ingersoll. In fact, it was even better. In particular, the will condensation technique was something that even legendary tier dragons yearned for. With this will condensation technique, it would be easy for Nazario to break through to the master god tier in the future. He might even have a chance of becoming a supreme god realm expert. He did not have to endure for countless years like other legendary tier dragons before slowly climbing to the master god tier with his talent as a legendary tier dragon. He even had to admire the supreme god realm. Zhou flew into the sky and looked at Nazario. Nazario, are you willing to contract with me and live and die with me? He asked loudly. Nazario is willing. Nazario's eyes lit up, and he said without hesitation. Previously, he and Zhou had only signed an ordinary blood recognition contract. It was an extremely common item and he had also heard of this Imperial Dragon contract. This was a top-notch contract technique specially created for the dragons. After the contract was successful, the two parties could grow together and become each other's growth aid. Nazario was proud even before he became a legendary tier dragon, let alone now. In the entire universe, only His Majesty could make him willingly contract with him. Zhou nodded and flew directly to Nazario. Then, he formed a spell with his hand and chanted a spell. Then, using his will as ink and his fingertips as a pen, he drew an extremely mysterious and complicated secret formation between Nazario's eyebrows. As the final stroke of the Imperial Dragon contract secret array was successfully drawn, both sides felt that a part of their soul origin had been absorbed and fused into the Imperial Dragon secret array. Zhou was fine since he had a strong will to begin with. To him, his soul was his skin, and his will was his source. Therefore, he didn't care about this bit of consumption at all. He could quickly recover after eating some true god-tier level soul supplements. After a portion of Nazario's soul was extracted, he immediately felt dizzy and sleepy, but at the same time, he realized that there was suddenly an extremely intimate feeling between him and his master. This sense of intimacy even surpassed that of blood relatives. Bloodline relatives were only related by genes after all. However, at this moment, Zhou and Nazario were already family in the soul. Moreover, there was a secret passageway between the two sides that could transfer each other's power. The power transmitted to the other party was nothing to Zhou and Nazario. They could recover after cultivating for 15 minutes. However, with the accumulation of time, they could gradually improve their foundation and potential, allowing both sides to reach a higher level. Follow current novels on Top Novelfool. Com. Chapter 914 The Path to Advancement of a Lord Law God Spirit. Open your mouth. At this moment, Zhou's voice sounded in Nazario's ears. Nazario subconsciously opened his mouth, and then he felt something being thrown into his mouth, emitting the rich fragrance of heavenly treasures. Eat them. Zhou said. Nazario did as ordered. As these natural treasures were eaten by him and turned into majestic energy to nourish his soul, Nazario immediately perked up. Not only did he feel the fatigue in his soul quickly disappear, but even the level of his soul had been raised by these natural treasures. It even made he feel a strange feeling of fullness in the depths of his soul. I fed you 3 true god-tier elementary grade divine herbs just now. It's specially used to recover and improve the soul level. If not for the fact that you're already a legendary tier dragon and your body and soul have undergone a qualitative change, I wouldn't have dared to feed you like this. Zhou smiled. Thank you, Master. Nazario said excitedly and respectfully. Zhou acknowledged. He didn't need to say anything or transmit any sound as he telepathy with Nazario. Nazario immediately understood what Zhou meant. His body rapidly shrunk, and in the blink of an eye, he had become a palm-sized black dragon. He flew to Zhou's side and followed him like a pet. Then, the man and the dragon flew to the ground of the blazing Sun Kingdom. Disperse. Prepare yourselves. I'm afraid we have a battle to fight after dawn. Zhou looked at the ministers who had yet to leave and said. Yes, Your Majesty. When the ministers heard this, they immediately said respectfully. Then, they dispersed to make preparations. Zhou looked in Nadia's direction and transmitted a few words with his divine sense. Then, he turned around and waved his right hand. A new spatial teleportation channel appeared beside the Divine Kingdom's spatial teleportation channel. He and Nazario flew straight into it. Then, in the blink of an eye, they arrived at an extremely empty island. There were white clouds in the sky, a gentle breeze in the sky, and grass and trees filled with vitality were growing on the island. Gopher, ant, seagull, crocodile dragon, all kinds of creatures filled this small world, forming a perfect independent ecological cycle. The island was surrounded by an endless sea, and there were all kinds of marine creatures in the sea. Zhou Zhou looked at the island space and stroked his chin. He muttered to himself, "This is also the first world I've created. No, it can't be called a world. At most, it can be called a small island space." In fact, the space volume of this small island space is not even as big as the internal space of the mysterious merchant's mysterious business ring. But, Zhou Zhou couldn't help but exclaim, "This space is even more complete than the middle world of a true god tier. This should be one of the benefits of the Lord's law, it can create a world closer to the real world. Otherwise, a world created by a god spirit who isn't a lord can't be as real and perfect as my world." Zhou Zhou pondered. Worlds created by non-lord law god spirits all had one characteristic. The world that was created would contain the characteristics of the nomological path that this god spirit walked. For example, the world created by the fire law god spirit was a world filled with flames. For example, the world created by the law of life god spirit would live with all kinds of perfect or flawed strange lifeforms. For example, the world created by a god spirit with the nomological laws of the sword would not even have land, sea, or life. There would only be all kinds of sword chi filled with the world. Even the gods of the laws of chaos, the world he created at the beginning was a chaotic world filled with chaos chi. In comparison, Zhou Zhou's world seemed extremely normal. It could even be said that there was nothing special about it. This was the most unique feature of the Lord's rule. If I hadn't experienced the reign of laws in the supreme domain, allowing me to control all the laws and collect them in my myriad star palm, I really wouldn't have been able to create such a near-perfect world. Zhou Zhou muttered to himself. That reign of laws was indeed a great opportunity for him. It could be said to have laid the most important foundation of laws for his Lord's nomological path. From now on, he only needed to continue absorbing all kinds of laws and constantly improve the power of his myriad method star palm. Then, he would train his subordinates with all his might and let more subordinates enter the stage of comprehending laws. Then, with the Lord's law and the ability to control all laws, his Lord's law comprehension would constantly improve. Then, he would make up for the corresponding promotion energy and continuously increase the level of his Lord power. Then, his God spirit realm would continuously increase. It sounded simple, but it was actually extremely difficult to do. Especially when it came to the upgrading of the Lord's power. At this moment, Zhou Zhou, who had already become a god, already had a premonition. If he wanted to advance to the mid-tier deity level, other than fulfilling the requirements for nomological comprehension, he also had to upgrade his Lord power to the level of an advanced kingdom. If he wanted to advance to the high-tier deity level, he had to raise his Lord power to the level of a primary empire. As for advancing to a higher level, there were naturally higher requirements. This was the Lord's rule: upgrade the country first, then upgrade the god. In comparison, for Zhou Zhou, nomological comprehension was the simplest. There were many hostile god spirits outside, allowing him to absorb laws through battle to increase the power of the myriad method star palm and increase the comprehension of this Lord law skill after all. With the blessing of the war god and many treasures that aided in the comprehension of laws, his subordinates could quickly advance to the god spirit realm and help him increase the power of the two Lord law skills, the king and the myriad method star palm. It wasn't difficult for him to improve the nomological realm of his Lord's laws. Zhou Zhou stopped thinking and waved his right hand again. A dazzling palace appeared on the island. Zhou Zhou had also forgotten which enemy god spirit had seized this palace treasure from. Even though it was only a high-tier deity-level intermediate-grade palace divine artifact, it was not a problem for him to serve as the palace for receiving guests from the outside world and holding the kingdom's court assembly. This palace shall be called the Blazing Sun Palace. A high-tier deity-level intermediate-grade palace divine artifact was naturally qualified to be his palace. At that moment, he suddenly sensed something. He took a step forward and vanished into thin air. The next second, he was already sitting on the throne in the palace. He looked out of the palace. In the distant spatial passageway, a figure appeared and landed on this island. It was Nadia. After he arrived at the island, he, who had excellent eyesight, immediately saw the magnificent palace and Zhou Zhou sitting on the throne. "Nadia, come here." Zhou Zhou's voice sounded. Nadia's expression was complicated, but she still flew over and landed in the hall. She bowed respectfully and said, "Elven Empire, 6th Diplomatic Envoy, Blood Fire Sword Spirit, Nadia. Greetings, Your Excellency Common People's Regal." God spirits had a well-known ability. Anyone who had witnessed a god spirit would naturally know the god's name in their hearts. Therefore, Nadia addressed Zhou Zhou as Common People's Regal. Zhou Zhou nodded slightly, then looked at Nadia and smiled. "Even though it's been less than half a month, it feels like we haven't seen each other in a long time." Nadia looked at Zhou Zhou in a daze and said with a bitter smile, "It's been a long time indeed. So long that I feel like I'm dreaming when I see Your Excellency now." Zhou Zhou laughed out loud. Follow current novels on Top Novelfool.com. Chapter 9:15 Entry Requirement to the Divine Battlefield. Pseudo-True God Tier Divine Artifact Life Form. After Zhou Zhou stopped laughing, he said, "Even though this king has changed a lot, you don't have to be restrained. Let's just chat normally like before." "Yes, Your Excellency," Nadia said respectfully. However, she sighed in her heart. Could they really return to their original state? The disparity between the two of them was huge, be it in terms of strength or status. She shook her head in her heart and eliminated all unnecessary thoughts. Then, she said seriously, "Your Majesty, the divine battlefield has already absorbed enough life and death energy. More than 2 hours ago, the entrance to the world fissure was officially opened. After the Empress learned of this news, she immediately asked me to come and tell Your Excellency about this matter. She would like to ask Your Excellency through me if Your Excellency is still willing to fulfill the original agreement and take out that fragment of the true God-tier divine artifacts for the Elven Empire." When Nadia said this, she still couldn't help but feel shocked. This was the first time she had seen Her Majesty the Empress use such a probing tone to ask for the opinion of another existence. But it made sense thinking about it. The common people's regal in front of him had a shocking reputation of killing pseudo-true god-tier experts as a legendary tier advance grade. Now that he had become a god spirit, he had even killed 3 scarlet true god-tier god spirits. Before long, this news would spread throughout the entire high continent and even the myriad worlds. Such a terrifying battle record that had never been seen before and would rarely be seen again in the future would make this common people's regal truly be regarded by the life forms of the outside world as a super expert with conventional true god-tier combat power. Facing such a super expert, it was normal for Elizariel, the Empress of the Elven Empire, to show a respectful attitude. There was only one true god-tier existence protecting them even in the huge Elven Empire after all. However, Nadia still found it hard to imagine. The common people's regal in front of her has an unparalleled reputation now when he was just a new lord who had just entered the high continent not too long ago. He even had a certain relationship with her. At this moment, she really felt like she was dreaming. At the same time, Zhou Zhou did not hesitate while Nadia was in a daze. This king will naturally abide by the original agreement. After dawn, when I'm ready, I'll lead my troops to the divine battlefield. But before that, let's talk about the specific requirements to enter the divine battlefield first. He said. "Thank you, Your Excellency. I'll tell you in detail, Your Excellency," Nadia said. That divine battlefield was originally a battlefield where 2 divine systems fought. One of the divine systems is led by the true god-tier intermediate grade, the true god of aging and sickness, Vapolius. The other pantheon is the ORL pantheon group led by the true god of fertility and breeding, Octavel. About 10,000 years ago, these two god systems once fought for the territory of a high-tier deity-level advance grade on a high continent. Even though the true gods of both sides didn't participate, they used their respective true god-tier divine artifacts. In the end, the ORL pantheon group won the war, and more than half of the Vapolius pantheon group was killed or injured. They had no choice but to hide and recuperate. However, His Excellency Octavel's true god-tier divine artifacts, the spirit-nurturing stone seed, also lost a piece to the opponent's true god-tier divine artifacts in this battle. The spirit-nurturing stone seed is a divine artifact used by Your Excellency, the true god-tier, to create life. It has the ability to nurture life itself. After a fragment of the true god-tier divine artifact was knocked out, this true god-tier divine artifact fragment directly borrowed the vitality and death aura of the divine battlefield to evolve into a pseudo-true god-tier divine artifact intelligent life form. It also solidified the divine battlefield into his special true god domain. Only life forms below the legendary tier advance grade are allowed to enter. After a fragment of the true god-tier divine artifact was knocked out, this true god-tier divine artifact fragment directly borrowed the vitality and death aura of the divine battlefield to evolve into a pseudo-true god-tier divine artifact intelligent life form. It also solidified the divine battlefield into his special true god domain. Only life forms below the legendary tier advance grade are allowed to enter. But now that I've ascended to godhood, I'm afraid I don't meet the conditions to enter. Nadia pursed her lips. As a legendary tier advance grade who killed a pseudo-true god-tier divine artifact life form, in the entire myriad worlds and since ancient times, perhaps only Your Excellency in front of him was qualified to say such words. But, at this moment, Zhou changed the topic and said with a faint smile, "Did the Elven Empress already think so highly of me back then? He actually thought that I, a lord of a myriad races who had just gained fame, could actually defeat that pseudo-true god-tier divine artifact life form. Since the Empress said that, there must be a reason." "Yes, Your Excellency." Nadia came back to her senses and nodded. Normally speaking, a pseudo-true god-tier elementary grade divine artifact god spirit occupying a mystic realm that can only be entered by life forms below the legendary tier advance grade means that the other party is almost invincible in that mystic realm. This is also why Your Excellency Octavel has not been able to retrieve the fragments of his true god-tier divine artifacts for 10,000 years. However, the true form of the life form of the fake true god-tier divine artifacts was once a part of the true god-tier divine artifacts controlled by Your Excellency Octavel. Therefore, after long-term research by Your Excellency, we've already developed a secret treasure that can reduce the strength of that pseudo-true god-tier divine artifact life form. As long as you use that secret treasure, you can reduce the strength of that pseudo-true god-tier divine artifact life form to the same level as the person who used the secret treasure. At the very least, it can be reduced to the low-tier deity-level elementary grade. This way, the difference in strength between the two sides won't be too great. As for the fact that Your Excellency's strength exceeds the upper limit of the divine battlefield, Nadia thought for a moment and asked tentatively, "I know a secret technique that can temporarily suppress the strength of life forms. I wonder if Your Excellency needs it." Through this method, one can deceive the entrance mechanism of the divine battlefield and enter it. "You can do that?" Zhou raised his eyebrows and shook his head. "I know this secret technique too. You don't have to give it to me." He had passed the King of Lutes and mastered too many skills, talents, hero skills, and law skills. Among these abilities, there was no lack of methods to temporarily suppress or increase one's strength, so Zhou really did not need Nadia to give it to him. "Yes, Your Excellency." Bai Yun nodded. "There's one more thing. That divine battlefield can only allow a lord to bring 100,000 soldiers in at most. Anything above 100,000 won't do. Other than that, there are no other requirements to enter the divine battlefield." "I understand. Go back and rest first. I still have some things to do. After these small matters are done, I'll bring my troops to the divine battlefield with you. It won't be long. Zhou Zhou said. Yes, Your Excellency. Nadia nodded and was about to leave. Nadia. Zhou Zhou suddenly spoke. Nadia, who was about to leave, looked at Zhou Zhou in surprise. That was a state meeting, it's now time to talk as friends. Nadia, I want to ask you a question. Will you come to my side and help me? He asked. Follow current novels on Top Novelfool.com. Chapter 916 Divine Artifact Forging Apprentice. Heavenly God. Nadia hesitated when she heard that. Zhou Zhou struck while the iron was hot. As you can see, my current potential and strength are known to all races. It's very likely that I can establish an empire or even a divine kingdom in the future. Furthermore, my territory is extremely helpful to the growth of my subordinates. You can only be an ordinary epic tier hero with the fate level in the Elven Empire. But with me, I can instantly give you the potential of a high tier deity level or even a true god tier. In the future, becoming a god spirit or even becoming an ancestor might not even be a problem. Furthermore, we met when I was still young and weak. I still haven't forgotten the strange encounter we had in the Time Ruins, Zhou Zhou said sincerely from the bottom of his heart. I hope that this strange encounter can continue. When the myriad worlds are at peace in the future, we can sit down and talk about the past with smiles and emotions. I don't want to suddenly hear that you died in battle elsewhere at some point in the future. And now I have the power to keep you safe. Will you come to me? Zhou Zhou's words were sincere. Hearing this, Nadia was moved and blushed slightly. She pursed her lips. How could she not know that what Zhou Zhou said was true? She was not an outstanding elven hero to begin with. If not for the fact that Her Majesty the Empress valued her past relationship with Zhou Zhou, she would not even be qualified to be a diplomat standing here. On this side, could be a bright future ahead of her. On the other side, there was a high chance that she would die in battle in the future. Just by looking at it, it seemed like everyone knew what to choose. However, Nadia remained silent for a long time before she finally said softly, I was saved from the river of time by Her Majesty. Because of this, I swore in front of the Elven Mother Tree that I would fight for the Elven Empire for the rest of my life, without regrets. Your Excel. Zhou Zhou, I can't promise you that. Zhou Zhou nodded as usual. Then, he said in a half-serious and half-joking manner, looks like I can't obtain everything even if incomparable to a true god tier. Then, he casually waved his hand, and a high-tier deity level, Hero Inheritance Secret Manual, and Book of the God Spirit, appeared out of thin air in front of him. They flew towards Nadia and eventually floated in front of her. Nadia, as a friend, these are 2 small gifts for you. The paths in these 2 books are very suitable for you. Take them. Zhou Zhou said. He could tell that Nadia was still a hero at epic tier. Her strength was only at the epic tier advanced grade. Without external help, he might have ended up like this for the rest of his life. It could be said to be quite difficult if she wanted to break through by herself. That was why Zhou Zhou gave these 2 gifts. Nadia looked at the 2 hero inheritance manuals and the Book of the God Spirit in shock. She could not help but swallow her saliva. As the person involved, she naturally knew the importance of these 2 precious books to her better than Zhou Zhou. If he had these 2 precious books, his future would be bright. It would not be a problem for him to become a high-tier deity level in the future. Unlike now, just breaking through the legendary tier bottleneck could become a problem that troubled her. She looked conflicted and finally said in a low voice, it's too expensive. I can't take it. This is nothing to me. Just accept it. Zhou Zhou shook his head. To the current him, the high-tier deity-level hero inheritance and the Book of the God Spirit were only so in value. True God tier and above hero inheritance secret manual and Book of the God Spirit were more interesting. Only the Master God tier level was considered precious. Therefore, these two books were really nothing to Zhou. Before Nadia could say anything, she heard Zhou say with a smile, "Take these two books as my investment in you. How about that? When you become a high-tier deity level, you can think of a way to repay me. Don't be so wishy-washy about this matter as a blood fire arrow elf." Zhou pretended to despise her. "Thank you." Nadia finally accepted the two books. Then, she took her leave. After she left, Zhou sighed softly in the empty hall. Then, he straightened his expression and flew out of the island space, returning to the real world. It was already morning. When Zhou saw this, he went straight to the Gate of Summoning. After spending 100 epic tier mist cores to accelerate, he summoned all 28,800 new subjects from the Gate of Summoning. When the Gate of Summoning was upgraded to the epic tier elementary grade, even the cost of summoning subjects had increased by 10 times. Fortunately, this bit of mist core was nothing to Zhou. "Greetings, my lord," X28800. The 28,800 new subjects said respectfully in unison. "Welcome to the Blazing Sun Kingdom." Zhou smiled and nodded. Then, he got all the professionals to stand up and realized that he had summoned a total of 700 professionals this time. He summoned 92 more professionals than usual. Among them were an epic tier demon warlock, an epic tier aerial spirit master, an epic tier array master, an epic tier alchemist, an epic tier iron guard, an epic tier chef, an epic tier succubus warlock, and an epic tier divine artifact forging apprentice. Zhou's gaze landed on the last divine artifact forging apprentice. This divine artifact forging apprentice looked to be about 17 or 18 years old even though his real age was already more than 100 years old. However, he looked very timid. When Zhou's gaze landed on him, he actually shrank his neck in fear and did not dare to meet Zhou's gaze. "What's your name?" Zhou asked. "My name is Jacker," Jacker said fearfully. "You're a divine artifact forging apprentice. You should become a divine artifact forgers in the future, right? Why don't I see a single divine artifact blueprint in your ability list?" Zhou glanced at the other party's skill list and asked. "My teacher said that he will let me study the divine artifact blueprint only after I become a god spirit. Understanding knowledge that shouldn't be learned at this stage in advance will only be harmful to myself and not be beneficial. It will develop a bad habit of having low standards," Jacker said. Zhou stroked his chin. That seemed to be the case. Divine artifact forgers needed a god spirit level combat profession to master the abilities of a divine artifact forgers. Otherwise, those who were not at the god spirit level would not be able to inscribe nomological engravings on divine artifacts. Naturally, they would not be able to forge divine artifacts. Your teacher should be a divine artifact forger, right? Can you tell me what level he is? True god tier, Jacker whispered. My teacher is the heavenly god of forging and the sun, Orofa. Zhou was stunned. A heavenly god? Wasn't that a born god spirit authorized by the heavens? It was equivalent to the connate life forms of the immortal world. They were born with powerful strength and ability. Follow current novels on Top Novelfool. Com. Chapter 917 Vast number of soldier-type books. The population of the entire earth in a day. The heavenly god of forging and sun, Orofa. Why does that name sound so familiar? Zhou pondered as he searched for the inherited memories of his bloodline. A moment later, he remembered. This heavenly god of forging in the sun, Orofa, was a god spirit born from the supreme star, the sun star. Even though he was not the supreme existence who controlled the sun, he was still the subordinate of a famous god spirit. Moreover, the other party was one of the few existences in the myriad worlds that could create true god-tier divine artifacts. Therefore, it was said that many true gods and even master gods would treat this god of forging in sun, Orofa, as an esteemed guest. When Zhou Zhou recalled these things, he couldn't help but look at Jacker strangely. Why are you so cautious with such a powerful background behind you? Zhou Zhou was a little confused. Could it be that Orofa was too strict? Or could it be that this was a 100-year-old, young man who had just left his sect and was seriously inexperienced in society and did not know how powerful his family was? Zhou Zhou did not understand. However, he did not intend to get to the bottom of it. He was part of him since he was there. As long as he was not a heartless piece of trash, who cared about his past and future. Since you're here, there's no need to be reserved. Zhou Zhou patted his shoulder with a smile. Stay in my territory and continue to train your skills. I believe that you can definitely grow quickly with me. Then, you can return to your teacher as soon as possible and learn the divine artifact blueprint. Thank you, Your Majesty. Jacker nodded vigorously when he heard that, his eyes filled with desire and passion. When he first stepped into this land and became a subject of the Blazing Sun Kingdom, he felt several mysterious powers in this land imperceptibly augment him, greatly improving his basic abilities, potential, comprehension ability, and efficiency in learning techniques. Even though he was very surprised by the mysterious powers that suddenly augmented him, he could sense that these powers weren't harmful to him. Instead, they were extremely beneficial to his growth. Hence, Jacker relaxed and obediently accepted these mysterious powers. He believed that with the support of these mysterious powers, he would definitely be able to quickly achieve the goal that his teacher had left for him before he left. He might even be able to surprise his teacher. Towards the end, Jacker revealed a silly smile. Zhou Zhou looked at his silly smile and fell into deep thought. This 100-year-old child was probably a fool. He suddenly understood why Orofa had released him to train. This kid had the potential of a true god-tier elementary grade. After receiving the enhancement of his Sword of Shen Yuan, Sun Moon Star Sword, his aptitude directly rose to the level of a master god-tier elementary grade. Naturally, he was qualified to be the disciple of the god of forging in Sunday. However, his mentality seemed to be a little too new. He looked like he was ignorant of the world. Becoming a god was also a test of willpower. With such a tender willpower, it was indeed time for him to come out and gain experience. Otherwise, it would be very difficult for him to become a god in the future. If you feel that your teacher hasn't taught you enough, I also have many divine artifact blueprints for you to learn. Even though they are all blueprints for the forging of low-level divine artifacts. Zhou Zhou didn't think too much about it and said. Through the King of Loot's quality +1, he had indeed obtained many divine artifact blueprints. Even though he had yet to obtain the blueprint for the true god-tier artifact, he still had everything from a lesser god to a high-tier deity level. It was enough for Jacker to learn for a long time. Thank you for your high regard, Your Majesty. However, I still want to follow teacher's instructions and take it step by step. When my teacher says when I'm qualified to learn the divine artifact blueprints of the outside world, he'll ask His Majesty for the divine artifact blueprints. Faced with the temptation Zhou Zhou mentioned, Jacker was a little tempted at first, but he quickly restrained his desires and said to Zhou Zhou calmly. Zhou Zhou nodded. He did not say much on the surface, but he was amazed in his heart. He somewhat understood this guy's character. What a shy and obedient disciple. Your Majesty, can I join your army and fight alongside it? I can repair some high-level equipment for His Majesty's army. I even know a little about the repair work of some low-level divine artifacts. In addition, I also have a divine kingdom combat profession, heavenly strongmen. I can also kill enemies for His Majesty on the battlefield. I want to increase my strength as soon as possible. This way, I can serve His Majesty better and complete the goal that teacher left for me as soon as possible. I want to advance to a divine artifact forgers as soon as possible. No problem. Zhou Zhou nodded and agreed. Join the Blazing Sun Army later. The Blazing Sun Army is the first legion under me. It will frequently carry out dangerous war missions. With you there, even if you're a Divine Kingdom combat professional, you can still advance to a God spirit in the shortest time possible. In the future, when your loyalty reaches the standard, this king will send someone to bring you to a place so that you can quickly increase your comprehension of the laws. At that time, you won't be far from your goal of becoming a god. In the eyes of the life forms in the outside world, becoming a god is an extremely difficult thing. But to this king, it's far from difficult. Zhou Zhou smiled. The Myriad Ingot Palace was located in his divine kingdom. To be safe, Zhou Zhou would only allow dead loyalists, fanatic believers, and holy spirits to enter his divine kingdom. Right now, Jacker's loyalty had already reached 95 points thanks to his deception and the support of the Lord Talent, Peaceful Times. Even though this loyalty was already very high, Zhou Zhou still did not want to break this bottom line. He would bring he to Myriad Ingot Palace when he was dead loyal to him. On the other side, even though Jacker was very curious about the mysterious place that His Majesty had mentioned to him, he did not ask further seeing that His Majesty did not say much. However, he was still shocked. This was because he could hear the incomparably powerful confidence in the other party's words, proving that the other party was most likely not lying. Was this the strongest lord of the myriad races? He was surprised and respectfully said, "Thank you, Your Majesty." Zhou Zhou acknowledged. Following that, he didn't say anything else. With a wave of his hand, he got the officials who had been waiting around for a long time to bring a portion of the new subjects they had summoned to settle down, split up their houses, and find jobs. Jacker followed a group of military professionals and combat professionals to the Blazing Sun Army's encampment under the lead of a soldier guide. As for Zhou Zhou, he found Bai Yun and led the soldiers of the Blazing Sun Kingdom into the Ranchland Plain. In half an hour, he cleared all 1,500 upgraded monster ranches, totaling 2,250,000,000 monster ranches. Zhou Zhou ignored the other loots. His gaze landed on the 4.5 billion Yellow Talisman Dao Soldier Recruitment Books, 4.5 billion Yellow Talisman Dao Soldier Class Change Certificate, 1.35 trillion Violent Storm Spirit Recruitment Books, and 1.35 trillion Violent Storm Spirit Class Change Certificate. Zhou Zhou looked at the two mountains of books and could not help but smile. Nearly 6 billion new troops in a day, the population of the entire Earth in a day. He lamented. Chapter 918 15 billion soldiers. True God-tier intermediate grade faction quests. Then, he placed the 2 billion Yellow Talisman Dao Soldier Class Change Certificate in a spatial ring and handed it to Bai Yun. Bai Yun. Send it to the Night Temple and tell them that this is today's class change certificate. Zhou Zhou instructed. Yes, Your Majesty. Bai Yun nodded and took the spatial ring. Then, she called over a trusted aide and handed the spatial ring to him, asking him to send it to the Night Temple. After receiving the order, the trusted aide immediately left with the spatial ring. Zhou Zhou looked at the other party's departing figure and pondered. In the past 2 days, he had sent 2 billion Yellow Talisman Dao Soldier Class Change Certificates to the humans every day. He left the remaining 2.5 billion Class Change Certificates for himself. He would transform all the yellow gold tier god attendants in his army into Yellow Talisman Dao soldiers first. In 2 days, all the close combat soldier types under him would be able to change their professions to Yellow Talisman Dao soldiers. Moreover, he would still have many Yellow Talisman Dao Soldier class change certificate left. When the time comes, he would give the other party 4 billion Yellow Talisman Dao Soldier class change certificates every day and leave 500 million books for himself. As such, he only needed 6 days to trade all 20 billion Yellow Talisman Dao Soldier class change certificates to the human race and obtain the territory of the 3 empires. He didn't think too much about it. He came to the gate of summoning again and threw the 5 billion Yellow Talisman Dao Soldier recruitment books and 35 trillion Violent Storm Spirit recruitment books into the gate of summoning. He spent 100 epic tier mist cores to summon them all at once. He also changed the location of the summons to the inner worlds of the 6 galaxy ships. Looking at the 6 virtual screens in front of him, which were densely packed but orderly with more than 5 billion soldiers, the smile on Zhou Zhou's face intensified. With these 5,850 million new recruits, I have a total of 15,535,764,124 new recruits under me. By tomorrow, my soldiers will be able to exceed 20 billion. Zhou Zhou was in high spirits. 20 billion soldiers. Even the Elven Empire, a high-level lord faction, probably didn't have so many troops, right? The only flaw was that more than half of the 15 billion soldiers under his command were new recruits whose strength did not exceed yellow gold tier. These soldiers were fine when facing a low-level battlefield. However, once they faced an elite army that had been through hundreds of battles, such as an empire-level army, even if they were not afraid of death in battle, they would probably not be able to avoid heavy casualties. I have to use the blessing of the war god to quickly increase the strength of these new recruits. I have to at least advance to the white platinum tier or even diamond tier to have the strength to protect myself on the top battlefield I'm facing. Zhou Zhou pondered. Thankfully, from today onwards, he would send troops to protect the human subjects as they retreated to the primordial world. During this process, countless surrounding hostile races would definitely attack and stop humans from retreating to the primordial world. They would wait until the armies of those races arrived before killing the humans. As long as Zhou Zhou's soldiers could survive this battle, they would definitely be able to grow greatly. However, even the current Zhou Zhou could not help but feel solemn when he thought of the army of races that would invade in the future. That was a powerful faction that involved more than 200 races, at least 500 to 600 billion soldiers, and at least 5,000 to 6,000 god spirits. He was far from being a match for these enemies even if he already had 20 billion soldiers. Fortunately, I have the protection of the Supreme Agreement. Most of the humans should have retreated to the primordial world by then. The armies of these races and factions should have made a wasted trip. Zhou Zhou thought to himself. At this moment, a soldier suddenly ran over from afar and came in front of him. It was the soldier who had just delivered the spatial ring to the Night Temple. Your Majesty. The soldier handed a letter to Zhou Zhou. Your Excellency, the silver meteor god of the Night Temple, asked me to pass this to you. He said that the Lord Hall, master of the Night Temple and a few other speakers of the human race wanted he to pass this to you. In addition, Your Excellency, the silver meteorite god, also said that he had already heard the news that you had successfully ascended to godhood and killed 3 scarlet true god tiers after ascending to godhood. He said that he congratulated Your Majesty for stepping into the level of god spirits. However, he is currently shouldering a heavy responsibility and is too busy to leave. In the future, he will personally apologize and congratulate Your Excellency. I understand. Zhou Zhou acknowledged. Naturally, he would not doubt Rob Allen's words. At this moment, Rob Allen was probably coordinating the subjects of the Night Empire to migrate to the primordial world. It was normal for him to be busy. Then, he got the soldier to leave. He opened the letter and read its contents. The content of the letter was probably, the Yellow Emperor and the others had also just heard that Zhou Zhou had successfully ascended to godhood and killed 3 scarlet true god tiers after ascending. In the letter, they expressed their shock and congratulations. They planned to hold a holy ceremony for him in the primordial world after all the humans retreated to the primordial world. They wanted to celebrate he truly having the combat power of a regular true god tier and becoming the sixth true god tier of the human race. Holy God was the honorific title of the human race's true god tier speaker. Furthermore, the Yellow Emperor and the others also had the intention to use this holy ceremony to make the humans abandon the depressed atmosphere of abandoning their home in the future. The letter also mentioned something else. That was, after he ascended to godhood and killed 3 scarlet true god tiers, a large number of people of foreign races would soon contact him and request to become a subsidiary race of his, hoping to obtain his protection. If he felt that he had the ability to control them, he could take them all under his command and increase his strength. If he felt that there might be people with ulterior motives among them, he naturally had to make a careful choice. Finally, this was written by the Yellow Emperor himself. He seemed to have given Zhou the last human faction quest. Human race's second speaker, Yellow Emperor, has issued a faction quest to you. Faction quest's name: protect the human race and in their retreat to the primordial world. Mission quality: true god tier intermediate grade. Unique mission content: a large number of soldiers and god spirits were leading the attack on the human factions of the High Continent on a large scale. The human factions of the High Continent have no choice but to adopt the racial strategy of retreating to the primordial world to protect themselves. In the next 3 days, please lead your Lord's faction in protecting the retreat of the human factions from the High Continent to the primordial world and repel any enemies who try to stop the implementation of the human strategy. The faction's mission will be considered completed and at least 80% of the human race has successfully entered the primordial world. Mission reward: 1 billion faction points, 1 exclusive race divine artifact of the human race, human reputation reached, reverence, favorability of the upper echelons of the human race would be greatly increased. You're tuning into the Han Li's Wuxia Adventures YouTube channel. We're so grateful for your support and don't forget to subscribe to join us on this incredible journey through captivating stories. Your generosity through donations truly makes a world of difference, as it's the primary source of revenue that allows me to expand and enhance this channel for you. Thank you from the bottom of my heart for being a part of this adventure.